How are we all? Son, you need to practice the song, maybe Smacking Dicks too. Her audio kept cutting out. I was trying to keep up without disrupting it. And I have a cold, and it's my birthday. It's not my birthday. Alright. I promise you theory, today's a theory stream. However, it's not just a theory stream. I'm doing a couple things, okay? Doing a couple things. So let's put on our Deus Ex background music. Kidnotkin sent me the music source he uses. I'm tempted to use it, but we'll see. I don't want to imitate him too much. It's not my birthday. It was a lie. I was joking. Stop it. The Dark Knuck, thanks for the membership. I hope that wasn't a birthday gift, because if it was, you still owe me one, because it's not my birthday. Alright, remember, we've got a goal today, and if we get our goal of 5 orange tier donations, I will personally come to your house and make you an omelet while wearing an apron and nothing else. Just so you know. Stop. It's not my birthday. Stop saying happy birthday. God damn it. Never doing that again. That was a mistake. That was a little mistake. What's this about Xanderhall going on about how liberalism is the new counterculture? Oh, we gotta see some of this, don't we? We gotta see a little bit of this. Then we'll get to it. Then we'll get to the real stuff. I just want to see, because Xanderhall failing is a guilty pleasure of mine. The Dark Canuck, happiest of birthdays. It is not my birthday. Thank you for the 279 Canadian. At least you didn't donate real money. What the hell? Oh, we don't want that. That is the live window. Okay. It's now the dead window. We want the live window. There we are. Oh, yes. Excellent. Angry Bear, thank you for the 149 US actual money. Up in the world. Alright, we gotta see a little bit of this. Hang on. Just cause it's funny. Xanderhall's monologues are always a treasure because he just says the dumbest stuff with the greatest confidence.
I like it.
Anyway,
like it guys, it's so good to see all of you. How are you all doing?
I'm doing
God,
swell,
so many people out here.
How are you?
Already shown up to the stream right at the beginning. What is up? Hey, everybody. What's up, Selkie Courts?
My birthday's in January. It is not my birthday. Stop saying it's my birthday.
Shayna the Welder, how are you? Random Robin, what's up? S, how are you doing? Xsterix.
I feel like if this voice said, hey, what's up, I would very quietly just remove myself.
Good to see ya. Definitely not Alice, how are you? I'm just here...
Stop, it's not my birthday. Stop donating money for me for my birthday. It is not my birthday. My birthday is in January, but thank you for the $10, Joylyn.
9, what's up? Ride the rails, good to see ya. I'm doing pretty well. Perry Icefire, how are you doing? Thank you. Green Moon 2040, what's up? Lefty Jenna, good to see you.
Oh my god.
Glamorous Frog.
Oh my, stop talking to them. They are ants. They exist to lift you on their shoulders. Stop acknowledging their existence.
People just dipping out.
No truce, thanks for the 10 new Z. Congrats on turning 50 years young.
And on the other end, you've got people jumping on board. It's so odd, you know? I mean, I won't complain. Trump winning is going to be amazing for
I am 33. My birthday is in January. Stop it.
mainstream media making money, unfortunately. It will be, but we have to build a space in alternative media that rivals it. And a good way to do that, if you guys want to help and you're enjoying the stream already,
Is to support Xanderhall to build an alternative space to rival the conservatives.
is to drop a like if you haven't already. Just dropping a thumbs up on my streams and my new videos.
I can't laugh anymore. Tyler's ruined laughing for me. It feels fake whenever I do it now. It's fucked with me completely. I feel like an OCD need to never smile or laugh or express pleasure at the embarrassment of my enemies.
As well, helps to really guarantee that YouTube boosts it in the algorithm and pushes it out to a lot of people, which helps to get it into new eyes and potentially convince people that Trump is stupid and they shouldn't have voted for him. So yeah.
I feel like Xanderhall being online is the worst possible bomb for that.
Yeah, consider hitting the like button, and I do appreciate it. It's totally free, by the way. Only takes a second.
Balm. B-A-L-M.
Xander, there's a guy in the Discord who said that the people who thought Kamala would win were worse than the Doomers. On a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is that take? Like 11. Like that's an 11 bad take. Jesus Christ.
Thank you, Angry Bear, for the $3.
People who thought that Kamala would win, you're just as bad as Doomers who just want to give up and give in to fascism.
Nah, you're gonna notice a lot of people are saying a lot of stuff that kind of goes from their emotions in the next couple weeks because they're really upset, and just kind of venting out their emotions in weird ways is all that's going to make them feel better in their mind. So just be prepared to see a lot of bizarre shit and weird behavior just because people are not
Invex, thank you for the $5. That's appreciated.
thinking clearly, and they're just trying to get their anger out. I'm a little old lady and so fucking depressed about the election, having trouble coping. I understand that, Georgia Mays. I'm really sorry to hear about that.
I'm something of a little old lady myself.
Hey, this is the time where the left gets to grow. The left gets to be the cool, edgy, counterculture, like, hip thing, because...
Oh, the left gets to be the counterculture. Okay, it's not as bad as liberalism being... It is not my birthday, Deluxe Toaster, but thank you for the $20 US. Thank you. It is not my birthday. Stop it.
We're no longer the administration that's holding... any power. We don't have Congress.
You've never been the administration holding any power, Xanderhall. You're sleeping in a church basement.
We don't have the Supreme Court. We don't have the House now. The House went to the Republicans.
You don't have the House now. You're sleeping in a church basement.
Pretty much. And we don't have the Senate.
You don't even have a House now. You're sleeping in a church basement.
Which means the Republicans can't blame shit on us. Which means that we, with our already existing pop cultural hold...
See me with my hold on the soul of our civilization. Those foolish Republicans have played directly into my hands. I now hold all the strings from my suite underneath the Mormon temple.
are now the counterculture.
Wait, who's now the counterculture?
Can't blame shit on us. Which means that we, with our already existing pop cultural hold, are now the counterculture.
What, the Democrats? The Democrats are not the counterculture, Xanderhall. The Democrats are the crumbling, decadent old regime.
I think we are genuinely at a pretty advantageous point
You're not.
to do some serious damage to the long-term health of...
You're in a situation of total defeat. Total, unmitigated defeat. You have lost so badly it will reverberate throughout the centuries.
right-wing politics in America. And it's not just in America, mind you, it's worldwide. I believe the Dems' performance in this election was some of the best progressive performance in any election.
They were horrifically bad. Kamala's campaign was muzzled, had no teeth, and had nothing distinctive about it. Does he mean nothing to lose? Maybe, but he also thinks that they did as good as they've ever done, which is astonishing to me.
In the world this year, which goes to show you how much the far right is taking over all around the world.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it wasn't that the Democrats ran a really bad campaign, like a cosmically bad campaign. And it wasn't that they ran a bad campaign because the party was being run by a bunch of incredibly senile, self-interested, broken people who were keeping a corpse in office far longer than he was supposed to. It's because the right already controls the world. Okay. So really, it was they couldn't. It was impossible. It was impossible. They had to lose. There's nothing they could have done. No amount of dead Palestinian children could have won them this election. AltFox, thanks for the US $2. I've now decided it's your birthday. Your decision is invalid, but thank you for the $2. It is not my birthday. Stop donating to me like it's my birthday.
This is not just a, like an America problem. Like, literally every country in the world is falling into right-wing populism due to...
They're actually not. They're actually not. What's happening is around the world, and by around the world he means Europe and North America. Around the world, you have populist messaging being very effective at mobilizing a whole lot of people to go vote in favor of right-wing parties. General public opinion is not swaying in a significant way right-wing. That is not saying that this is a good situation, but it is saying that the myth that actually the population is already right-wing in temperament, which is what this argument presumes, is very, very foolish.
To the global inflation we're currently experiencing. People fall for it when things are expensive. It's just that simple. A little bit of chapstick. Get my lips nice and lubricated.
Oh, I don't like that at all.
Don't want them to get all dry while I'm trying to talk. That wouldn't be good. Intel Fox 51, thank you for the
Okay, enough of that. Enough of that. We're good with that. Okay. So here's what I'm putting together. Here's the lame ass thing I'm putting together right now. Okay. Well, this is going on. This is partly pursuant to the new theme of this channel. A new theme of this channel. I'm more of a general practice of changing focus a little bit. Not changing focus is the wrong term. I want to start digging a lot heavier into specifically political content. And I also want to get the community engaged a lot more. So one of the ways in which I'm going to do that, I've decided, because one of the biggest problems here is integrating the actual stream with the educational content. That's actually very difficult to do, especially since we have a mixed audience that enjoys political content, theoretical content, and philosophical content, but also drama content, and also like current event stuff, all that stuff. And I think fundamentally what people are here for, having talked to a bunch of people, a few in particular, is that fundamentally what people are here for is for a specific kind of approach and not for the specific topic at hand in most cases, which is good. It means the channel's doing well. It means the channel has some people think the channel has some value at least, or at least I would like to think so, based on what I'm getting as feedback. So time management is a critical issue for me. Why? Because the streams wear me out. And I have to do research for essays, and I have to simultaneously plan streams, and I have to simultaneously read stuff so I can keep up with debates and current events. And I'm going to be real with you, I cannot do it. So here's what I'm going to do instead. This is what I'm kind of figuring. We're going to start having, and I've just sort of started putting it together in these blocks in MS Paint because I'm technically illiterate. We're going to start doing historical focus readings every month. Okay? Every single month. These are just different sort of topics. And it's going to basically be 3 books every single month. That'll be selected in advance. Still working those out. This is just kind of spitballing it. So for example, for a month just looking specifically at the roots of America's capital kind of thing, I have here on the list Half Has Never Been Told and The Great Divergence. I'm looking for a first one. I originally had Empires of the Atlantic over here, but I figured afterwards that it might be better to have that as a whole sort of history of colonialism block kind of thing. Obviously, this is Russian history. Obviously, judging by what I'm putting here, this is war in Ukraine stuff. But that general kind of approach. And the general idea is going to be we're going to cover 20 pages every single day of every single month. And some of those pages I'm going to read on stream. And some of those pages are going to be read in group chats in the Discord. And the difference between this and a normal book club is that this is not going to be a thing that is resolved in meetings. This is going to be a thing that's ongoing constantly. Constantly. The 1491 was just like something off the top of my head just to fill space. Just as an example. He's demanding birthday donations like a spoiled birthday brat. I'm demanding you don't give me birthday donations because it's not my birthday. Oh my god. So anyways, that's that. And that's going to help us with a couple of things. The first is it's going to mean that I hope, like for myself, it's going to mean I'm going to be significantly more historically educated by the end of the year. Because you're looking at something like between 600 and 800 pages of history read every single month on top of the normal stuff. It'll mean extra theory content for you guys because I'm not gonna paywall that. Simon Pierre Dubé, thank you for the 2 Canadian. Happy birthday Sunday. It is not my birthday. Please stop doing that. So I feel so old. So anyways, that's what that's doing. Okay. This will also open up other doors too. It'll mean that as we go through stuff like this, we'll have a lot more to talk about when current event stuff comes up. And it is something that would be improved by having a specific historical perspective or having an historically informed perspective because we're going to do that all together, which means the audience generally is going to get better informed because we're going to be going through this constantly. And eventually it's going to lead to us being able to do sort of like real-time analysis at a much higher quality. That's kind of the strategy, okay? I wasn't reading enough already, Copes and Seeds. Well, actually, the benefit of this is that you don't have to necessarily keep up. Because what's going to happen is, I mean, it's ideal if you keep up. It's good for you if you keep up. But what's going to happen is, as I read sections, I'm not just going to come out of the blue and start reading like 5 pages on stream. I'm going to give a preamble. I'm going to explain how we got here, connections I'm making with this. I might attach it to current things that I'm reading in the news or whatever. LSN redacted. Thank you for the $4.99. I'll just leave you with this. Love your stuff and happy birthday, bro. It's not my birthday. It's not my birthday, but thank you. All right. So anyways, we got a couple things to list here. I'm thinking of probably starting... I'm probably going to be starting with this section up here. Mostly because it's specifically apropos recent events. I need one other thing on this end. And basically this is history of American political economy, essentially. I guess would be the way to frame that. Oh my god. My editor just sent me a happy birthday. Here's an awful photo of Tyler for you. Why? That is indeed an awful photo of Tyler. To be sure. So wrinkly. Anyways. All right. All right. Tyler does a reading in FT Signifier's new video and shows up near the end. This is so weird, dude. This guy, FT Signifier, is such an insecure windbag, it's not even funny. Like, it's unreal. His video essays are aimless, rambling, and very stupid. And he himself is a very racist moron. Tyler near the end, apparently, doing a monologue. Do you know why he's associated with Westside Tyler at all? It's really funny. It's really very funny. The reason why is because I did a video critiquing FT Signifier, uploaded that as a segment, and then the next day, I think, he went into Westside Tyler's chat and had a conversation with him, and he's been butting up ever since. Because what happened is, FT Signifier is so insecure that if you criticize him, he will go into your chat and he will look for people. He will look for people who don't like you. And he will go try and support them in not liking you. It's very, very, very weird behavior. From a guy who's been doing a centrist turn. Because he's just kind of shit. He's just a tremendously insecure person. He really, really, really wants to be
more humans.
I can't even say it. Let me put it this way. He really wants to be Vosh in a deep, deep way. That's just... FT Signifier is going centrist? Oh, absolutely. He's been going into, like, specifically, like, movie commentary, moving away from political conversations. And that by itself wouldn't necessarily be it, but in addition, he's been specifically attacking, like, pro-Palestinian people. It's weird. Sunday stopping himself before the slurs? No. No. It was so much worse. He makes leftist slop essays. I wouldn't even say the leftist slop essays, but that whole crowd is just fundamentally useless. Just genuinely. I'm looking forward to. I really hope. I really want Tyler to integrate with this community really badly. I want him to integrate with these creators because there's only two possible outcomes. There's only two possible outcomes of him doing that. And that's one, which is the most likely. He gets into a fight with them, and hilarity ensues. And if you thought the Loner Box one was funny, oh my god. It'll be nuclear. It'll be like American fireworks on the 4th of July. Or he's going to be cheering on dead troops. It's going to be one of those, because there's no middle ground. No middle ground. I made a tier list recently. I just spit out coffee live on stream. It's disgusting. Sorry about that. I made a tier list recently. With his favorite streamers. He put Westside Tyler right next to Bad Empanada. It was hilarious. People like to call it... Yeah, these aren't essays. Like, these are just him rambling in front of a green screen. It's just rambling in front of a green screen and stitching it together. Basically what FT Signifier does, he doesn't make video essays. FT Signifier live streams offline because live streaming is scary. It's very scary. You say like cheering on dead troops isn't okay. Cheering on dead troops isn't okay. However, Tyler's not beholden to what is okay. Sunday, what are your thoughts on Hasanabi and his sphere? I think they are very dumb and very embarrassing and very campist and very silly. And I wish they wouldn't be because they have tremendously more reach than me. So they will poison the well for a lot of us before we ever get to the table. And it's deeply frustrating. Deeply, deeply frustrating. Sunday, have you read any of Hassan Piker's books? Hassan Piker wrote books? Really? I know I could write. No, he's just got a filmography. I like how his I like if you look on his Wikipedia, Hassan Piker's entire personal life section is just in 2021, Piker purchased a $2.7 million house in West Hollywood, California. That's his personal life. Which, I mean, I can't think of anything else, to be honest. Hassan Spiker? Who the hell is Hassan Spiker? Oh. A philosopher and comparative scholar of Islamic, Greek, and modern thought. Transgenderism and the violation of our angelic nature. Yeah, I have a feeling I'm not going to be a fan. I'm just getting that vibe. I mean, morally you agree with Hassan, so I don't understand what your point is. I don't morally agree with Hassan. Here's the thing to understand about Hassan Piker and me, okay? Not that you need to, but here's the difference. Hassan Pike, I am upset about Israel Palestine because a lot of innocent people, including women and children, are getting murdered. Okay? Hassan is angry about Israel Palestine because the women and children who are getting murdered are in on the victim team. That's the difference. Big important difference. Frogan will see October 7th and see a bunch of extremely hardened, violent people who are fundamentally gangsters working for a particular party. Murder a whole lot of innocent people and go, this is what revolution looks like. That's a response to it immediately, without asking any questions. Okay, that's the kind of person that Hassan Piker rolls with. Doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter if it ends up making the situation for the victim population worse. The victim population of colonial oppression, and so on and so forth. Doesn't even matter. It's just, ooh, dead Israelis. And they're super excited about that. That's the difference. The problem of Israel is not a party. You do understand that, right? I have no idea what you're saying. That sentence made no sense to me. Do you want to call in? Why don't you call in before we get into theory? It'll wake me up. Amir Hossein Boucheri. Okay, sweet. Join the, there's a link in the Discord, or a link in the description rather, to the Discord. Join stream guests. Or what are we calling it? Join the waiting room. Go in the waiting room. And Hassan's on the better end of the campus spectrum than other YouTubers he boosts, like Second Thought and Hakeem. Does he still boost Hakeem? I didn't realize they were still on good terms. Alright, Amir, you coming up? What's the chat? It's called Waiting Room. Are you Dark? Is that your name? Hello, are you Amir? Hello? I can't hear you if you're trying to speak.
Can you hear me now?
Very quietly. Let me see if I can turn you up. Yeah, you're super quiet. Try speaking again?
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, you're very quiet. Are you using a microphone, or are you just talking into a cell phone, or what are you doing?
I'm using a microphone. Not microphone, sorry, a headset.
A headset. Okay. Can you like try adjusting your headset so it's closer to your mouth, or maybe like increase your input volume, because you're like super quiet. I can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
So, what was your point there? I don't understand. So you're saying that you disagree morally with Hassan about what?
The way Hassan judges whether or not an act of violence is acceptable or not, or whether it's moral or not, is based upon whether or not a target population taken essentially as an ethnic or national group is classified in his mind as on an oppressor versus an oppressed side in some historical situation, right? So, for example, he's super on board with Tibet being dominated by the Communist Party in China as an example of this, or he's pro an invasion of Taiwan. Yeah.
Hassan Piker holds very contradictory moral positions. That's true. You're not gonna get any defense of him in regards to the matter. Now, the issue at hand is Israel-Palestine. Though, if you're saying that his Chinese comments, yeah, his Chinese comments are retarded, obviously. But the fact that he sometimes mentions stupid stuff doesn't mean that morally his position on Israel-Palestine is wrong.
Well, what do you? I'm sorry. The issue is not that him being critical of the mass bombing of Gaza and the theft of land from the West Bank is wrong because he's morally wrong on other things. The issue is that he has those positions. Excuse me?
Theft of land only in the West Bank?
I couldn't understand what you were saying. Say it again.
The theft of the land only in the West Bank?
The theft of the land only in the West Bank?
Yeah.
Well, the pressing issue currently is that there is illegal land seizure taking place in the West Bank right now.
Yeah, but you do know that the entire Israel is a land seizure, right?
Well, the entirety of Israel is not a land seizure. A lot of Israel is a land seizure.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
I'm sorry. The moral dilemma at the moment does not have to do with whether or not Israel as an entity is erased off the map and an additional mass exodus of personnel along ethnic lines takes place, right?
That doesn't follow.
But it does. If you're equating the current theft of land from the West Bank with the decolonization of all of Israel, and I assume by that you mean the redistribution of land to whoever familiarly used to occupy that particular plot of land, then what you are effectively doing is you're collapsing an issue where people currently are taking land against international law from people who are currently living in places versus returning ancestrally owned territory to people who lived there generations before, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but this doesn't bear on what I was talking about though, like at all. Like I'm not talking about that.
That was a de-evolution, right, from the conversation.
You are almost inaudible. You really got to like come really close to your mic. I can't understand what you're saying. It's like straining me to like understand you. You're now quieter than before.
Can you hear me? Yes or no?
Barely.
Yes
What
or no?
are you like? Are you calling me with a potato? What is that?
I'm from Iran, sir. I'm poor.
Hey, they have. I don't think that's specifically an Iran thing, but okay.
It has nothing to do with Iran, and it has to do with poverty. But you're correct. That was a de-evolution of the conversation. Go ahead.
It's a de-evolution of the. I don't even know what you're talking about, dude.
Get to your prime point when we're talking about Hassan.
Well, I had no prime point. You told me that I agree with Hassan Piker morally. I don't agree with him morally. I was very particular. I said the issue with Hassan Piker is not that I disagree with his position on Israel-Palestine. It's that the reasons why he has that position are perverse.
Why do you think that he has that position?
I think he has that. I think he has that position because he's coded one population as being oppressed and one as not being oppressed, one being Western allied, one not being Western allied. And he's decided that every violent action taken by one, by dint of their alignment on that scheme, is good or bad. So this is why, for example, as soon as the Houthis in Yemen start taking hostages, he's like, oh yeah, they're freedom fighters, even though they have purely self-interested motives for doing so.
Like what?
Like what?
Yeah.
Like, what are the self-interest? Well, how about drawing the United States into a conflict to redirect a ton of resources into Yemen from Iran so that they are more secure where they are
So you
and more
think
powerful?
that the reason these people are attacking ships is because of redirecting the United States to go out there and bomb them?
I couldn't understand that. Say again.
That's not what's going on. I don't think, I disagree with you. I don't think that their motivations are purely material.
Well, I think their motivations are purely material.
Why? Why do you think that?
Because their immediate material incentives for doing so, they are not engaging in moral action that will affect any positive outcome for the Palestinians. And they are specifically courting and reliant upon resources from the same regime that is supplying Hamas. And Hamas did a thing to draw Israel into a conflict that would cause immense devastation for the Palestinians so that it would disadvantage itself in the long run.
So you just made a whole lot of points. So let me address a few things that you just said.
I actually made
So
one
do you
point. I
think,
just made it in a detailed way.
yeah, well, that was a lot of stuff to unpack. So you just said that the Houthis, right,
Mhm.
are doing that because of material interest. Do you
Yes.
think that the material interest would be better? They would get more material
You
interest.
just
if they would
stop. Just repeat that. You got muffled for a second.
Okay. So do you think, right, that the Houthis, right, if they're pursuing just material interest,
Uh-huh.
it would be better for them to be just aligned with the United States like Saudi Arabia does?
Every time after you say Houthis, you get really quiet. I think you're either moving away from your mic or something, but you gotta speak clearly. I can't hear you because your audio is going in and out.
Okay. Do you think, okay,
Yes.
that it would be in the Houthis' material self-interest to be aligned with the United States as opposed to Iran? Yes or no?
Why would they be aligned with the United States? That doesn't make any sense.
Answer the question first. Do you think that that's true? Yes or no? Like Saudi Arabia, for example.
I'm pretty sure. Hang on. Um Give me a moment here. Let me double check something. Like they can't. They can't be aligned with the United States. Like Iran is
Of course
supplying.
they-
Okay, no, but what? Okay, Yemen is still technically in a state of civil war. You're aware of this?
Right, so they don't have material motivation.
No. Yemen's still in a state of civil war. They're two Yemeni governments, right?
What does that have to do with anything?
Well, what it has to do is that the Houthis are being supplied by Iran because they are fighting a proxy war. Because they are fighting a proxy war with Saudi Arabia. Who's allied with Saudi Arabia?
Brother, if they would just stop doing that and they would just say we're gonna drop Iran and they cater to the United States, obviously the material interest would be improved massively, sir. Are you fucking kidding me?
Okay, you don't know what you're talking about. I wish you the best. Cheerio.
What?
You don't know what you're talking about. I can barely hear you, but from what I can hear, you don't know what you're talking about. We're gonna move on.
So you don't think that? You really don't think that?
I really don't think what.
You really don't think that their material interests would be best served if they would be aligned with the United States, and they could do that in seconds, by the way.
Okay, you seem to be under the impression that material interest means that, ooh, this party's richer and more powerful, and therefore we will suck up to them and everything will work out for us. But the United States doesn't care about Yemen. The United States will not fund the Houthis, no matter what they do. This is dumb. This is dumb. You don't
Yes,
know.
it
You don't know what you're
was
talking about.
in Syria when it was interest.
Sorry.
They funded ISIS in Syria when it served their interest. Do you think that the Houthis controlling that strategical position wouldn't serve their interest? Are you fucking kidding me? Of course it would. They would align with them in a second if they would be pro-American. Are you kidding me?
Trying to think of how to explain this without having a long conversation in which I can barely hear what you're saying. It is an accusation that is floated that the United States was collaborating with ISIS in Syria.
It's true. It was. That's true. It was. It's not an accusation.
However, the Syrian civil war was not just between the Syrian government and ISIS. It is also not comfortable to the Houthis, in which the civil war in Yemen was directly abetted by America's allies and Saudi Arabia.
It was abetted by Americans' allies against someone that was not an American ally. And they could very well become a U.S. ally, right? And they would just, it, they would stop bombing them. There would be massive material
Okay, but hang
conditions.
on, slow down. Them not currying favor with the richest country on the planet does not mean that the actions they take against civilian vessels are morally motivated. That's really dumb.
They are morally motivated. That's
But
why
they
they
aren't
only
morally.
attack,
But they aren't morally motivated at all.
only attack West,
I just gave you.
not
I
the
just
other.
gave you a specific material motivation.
No, no, that's
Yeah,
just not
yeah.
true. That's the byproduct of that.
What's the That's the byproduct of that. Okay, so just to be clear, they were courting a confrontation with the most powerful military on Earth,
Yeah, why would they
and
do that?
to as an act of protest while their country is starving and they are dealing with uprisings against their own government locally. Right?
could
That's
prevent
what they
all
did.
that.
They just committed. They're just a giant. They're just a giant Bushnell. That's what that is.
And could they prevent all the things that you just said by just aligning with the United States?
They can't
Yes
do.
or
They
no?
can't. Well, first of all, the United States would not align with
Just
them.
answer.
But secondly,
Why? Why? The United States align with ISIS. Do you not think that it would align with the Houthis
the
in that
United
strategical
States is
position?
by proxy fighting against the Houthis already. Like it's already a proxy civil war between Saudi Arabia and Iran. The United States has already staked out a position there.
This is getting so stupid, sir. Look, we're talking about hypotheticals here. Do
Yeah,
you
but your
think
hypothetical's brain dead. It's not a matter of like, well, what if they just made friends with the United States? That's not on the table. Here's a question for you. Do you think the do you think the Houthis would be like on board with that if they did that? Like they'd have to. Okay, this is what the Houthis would have to do as conditions to be friends with the United States. Give up their claim in the civil war to Yemen, in which case they disappear.
Look, I don't understand what you're talking about. Look, if
I
those
know.
people's conditions materially won't improve if they're allied with the United States,
But
yes
they
or
won't
no?
materially improve if they're allied with the United States. The condition of them being allied with the United States will be them disappearing as an entity.
No.
Yeah.
Let's just say.
But why just... Okay, so let's just say we lived in a magical world where the stakes are different. That's dumb.
you, dude? What is wrong with you? You're trying to make a claim that they're motivated only by material interest, and I'm saying that if they're
They're a
aligned with the
militant
United States,
group in a civil war. What are you talking about? They're not motivated by material interest. They're only motivated by material interest.
no, they're not. They're not because if they would be material, it would be based materials um, justification for their actions,
I'm sorry.
right?
Do you
That
think
would be the
every
case.
do you think every single terrorist organization that has a moral manifesto is therefore morally motivated? Like, do you think ISIS shooting up that music hall in Russia? Do you think they were morally motivated?
I don't know.
The answer is no. The reason why they do this is because it makes a giant spectacle and it encourages powerful parties with lots of money, like Iran, for example, to funnel resources and money to them so that they'll do things like that in their interest.
No, it's not. Iran doesn't fund ISIS. That's wrong.
Uh,
I'm an Iranian. They don't. That's not true. This is not true. But I think people are motivated by
I
these
wasn't I wasn't
material
I
things.
wasn't saying I wasn't saying that Iran funded ISIS. I'm saying that's an example.
Yeah, but I don't understand. Look, people are motivated by things that are immaterial. The Houthis are attacking ships because they really believe, right, that doing that will somehow support Palestine.
I'm sorry, say that one more time. I'm
Let me
struggling to
ask you
follow
a
you. Your
question.
audio is really bad.
Let me ask you a question,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Do you think Hamas,
You
right,
cut out. You need to say it
attack?
again. Your audio just went way out. I don't know if you're moving. I don't know what's going on. You got to stay really still when your audio is working. Otherwise, I can't hear what you're saying. It just goes completely silent.
Okay. Do you think that Hamas, right,
Yeah.
specifically attacked Israel
Yeah.
because of material?
Because of material conditions. Do I think
No,
Hamas
material
attacked
reasons.
Israel because of material conditions?
Yeah, no, no, not material conditions, but just baseline material stuff. Just materialism.
Do I think
Has nothing.
Hamas attacked Israel because of baseline material stuff? I don't know what that means if you don't mean material conditions.
So no, not material conditions, right? So you say, for example, the Houthis, right, have a material gain from that. Do you think that Hamas's attack on Israel is just material? Has nothing to do with some immaterial thing about like these people stole our land and all of those things, right? And they destroyed our honor and did all those horrible things to us. You don't think that there's an immaterial thing to that? It's just material there?
Well, that's different. That pertains to them specifically, right? So, do I think they were morally motivated? No. Do I think they were motivated in order to get revenge and provoke Israel into an act that would hurt them in the long run? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
but they
see,
don't but
there's
they don't have that these are different actors. It's important in this case that Yemen is not Palestine. Like
no, that's correct.
When Yemen gets involved in this, they aren't.
No, if they didn't get involved in the conflict, that would be a lot more beneficial than getting involved. But they still got involved, even though materially was not beneficial.
But it was
They got
beneficial.
bombed.
It was beneficial.
What was the benefit from that compared to getting
The
bombed by?
benefit is that when you draw America into a conflict, enemies of America now have a direct incentive to funnel resources to the party that's in conflict with America, which means the party that's in conflict with America is getting a shit ton of more military power than they had before. It's the same reason why it's a similar to the reason why North Korea is sending in troops to Ukraine right now. Is it because they have a moral alignment with Russia? No, but it means that as a consequence of it, they get a much more seasoned and experienced and technologically efficient military than they had before. I don't think they've been in a conflict since the Korean War, no? So it's like,
Yeah, look, I think that in regards to the Yemen, it's wrong to just say that the Houthis have just material justifications for what they're doing
no, they have
and not
moral
immaterial.
justifications for what they're doing, but the reasons are material. The reasons are
I disagree.
100% material.
I think those people actually care about the people in Gaza. I just
Yeah, no, they
believe
don't.
that.
They don't even care about their own people. The reason why they're doing that is because it gets them resources and money to hold on to power. That's it.
They do. Why do you think that they don't care about
And
their
they
own
are
people?
not, excuse me?
What makes you think that they don't care about their own people?
Well, for example, they could end the famine by just surrendering and becoming, and aligning with all the other parties there, for instance.
Right, but why don't they do that? Why do you think that they don't do
Because
that?
they want to hold on to power.
Because
They want to be the ones in charge.
no, maybe it's because that those people, right, do not want to give up on their ideal, and because they don't want to give up their own ideal, and because they have the
Yeah,
support from the
buddy,
majority of
I'm going to tell you one thing. You're not poor enough if you think the Houthis are motivated because they don't want to give up their ideal. That's not their situation. They're not thinking, "Come on, guys, just believe in the cause." It's not how it works. Is he gone?
oh, so you don't think that that's the case? You don't think that people are motivated by idealism?
I do not think the Houthis are motivated by idealism. I think kids in their basement on their headsets are motivated by idealism.
No, you don't think that those people who are living in the Middle East, right,
I didn't
or
say the
Hamas,
Middle East. I said Yemen.
so let's just go with Yemen. So you don't think that those people are idealist at all? Like they have the culture that they're trying to preserve and all that?
The Houthis are a revolutionary government that is in civil war with a loyalist government. They're not idealists.
Oh, so why aren't they just giving up and just saying, okay, we're just gonna
Because the
give up
first
and
thing I
just
said, because they're de facto in power right now, they don't want to give that up. Partially because if they did, the leadership would be hunted down and slaughtered afterwards.
yeah. So you think that it's just the motivation of remaining in power?
Yeah,
This doesn't make any sense to
but
me. I
it
just don't
makes every bit
understand.
of sense. You just saying it doesn't make sense doesn't change it.
No, but you're just saying that those people are interested in power and all that. I'm just saying that
Yeah, the
once they're
Houthis are interested in
interested in
power. That's why they're in power. That's why they had to kill a lot of
ideal,
people to stay in power, and they're still killing a lot of people to stay in power. That's why they have to bomb ships to stay in power. That's why they rely on Iranian resources to stay in power. You think Iran's idealists? Think they're funding Hezbollah and the Houthis and Hamas, etc., because they're idealists?
I think we do. I think there's a lot of idealism going
That's
on in the
really
government.
that's really dumb. It's really dumb.
You
Do you know
don't
what? Do
think
you know what? Do you know what Hamas did on October 7th? They gave Israel a pretext to do as much damage as possible to a racially segregated group of people, specifically, so that by doing as much damage as possible and possibly dispersing them outside of that territory to bordering countries, they would destabilize their position in the region and put themselves into a much weaker geopolitical position down the line. So they sacrificed a whole ton of unfathomable amounts of civilians, men, women, and children, in order to get a political advantage. These are very, very cold people.
yeah, so see what you're saying is a whole lot of bullshit. So the people who are Hamas, who literally Sinwar died in Gaza. So you think that the guy who died in Gaza, literally he died in Gaza. You saw the clip, did you?
I don't know why you'd focus on the guy who died in Gaza when you could be focusing on the guys who died on October 7th. I don't know why you're.
Shut up for a second. I'm talking. Don't interrupt me. You
Excuse me?
think that that guy who died
Don't
in
interrupt
Gaza,
you.
that yeah,
I'm
he
not even just going to interrupt
interrupt.
you. I'm going to get rid of you because I'm going to move on. You're obnoxious. All right. Sorry, that audio is just sucking the life out of me. Dear God. What do you mean Hamas killers are cold? That's bullshit. It's brain dead. Brain dead. We don't need that. At least have passable audio if you're going to do that. Dear Lord, that was actually painful. Boring call, couldn't even understand half of what he was saying. I can't even make content out of that. That was so inaudible. That was actually terrible. Next time I'm going to do a mic check. Mic check next time, okay? The mic check's bad, we're just not doing it. It's not worth it. Can I help you? Hello?
Hello.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, hello, I'm Jade.
Jade?
You may have, yes,
Hi,
it is.
Jade. What's up?
Hi. You may have seen me on the chat. How's my audio?
Your
I
audio
have no idea.
is, I mean, I'm probably a bit biased right now given the last caller, but fantastic.
Okay, great. I went into the waiting room when the other guy went in, and I apologize for my English. It's like my fourth language.
It's pretty damn good.
Oh,
Actually, considering what I've seen
okay.
on YouTube, it's good for your first language, but it's pretty damn good for your fourth language.
Well, glad to hear that. Um, well, it kind of irked me the way you said that Hassan, the way Hassan thinks about Palestine, I guess. Um, how do I say this? Um, the way he thinks about the Palestinians as good guys and the Israelis as the bad guys. I don't think he sees it that way, at least not in sort of that cynical way, I would say.
I don't think he's cynical. I think he's a campus, though. I think he's fundamentally driven by his moral judgments are driven by who is on what side in essentially an ethnically divided line of oppressed and oppressor, which is really naive, and I don't like it.
Well, yes, maybe naive is right, maybe, but I think it's kind of strange. I would even say gross
Mm-hmm.
to ascribe him to that belief when we don't. Well, we cannot know what's in his mind really, and
I know who his friends are. I
honestly,
know who he doesn't
I
argue with, and I know from the examples of what he's said about other oppressed peoples based upon their alignment with either older cultures or with Western hegemons or whatever, that he's perfectly fine with peoples being colonized and brutalized by imperial powers, provided they are red coated, essentially. So
yes,
I take that
I've
and
been
I combine with what he says about, for example, like the Houthis and the people in his milieu,
well, yes,
like Frogan, for example, and I make a basic inference.
sure.
Yeah.
I've seen him say some strange things for sure sometimes, but also, well, I've seen him not what do you say? Who he argues with and who he doesn't argue with. He doesn't really argue with anyone anymore, I guess. I would say not for a long time. What I would say is, I don't think he really does that with Palestine and Israel. I really don't think he does. I think his conversations with Ethan Klein at the beginning of the conflict are proof enough that he doesn't see it that way.
How so?
Well, he had a really profound. Well, I don't know if I would say profound, but really complicated conversations with Ethan about the thing, especially given that Ethan was being
Oh, I'm familiar with the conversations
almost
with Ethan.
Zionistic.
Ethan's a piece of work in his own right.
Ethan's a piece of shit, and I don't know. I remember Hassan crying the first days.
All right, got some bad news for you. Okay.
Yeah, give
Okay.
it to me.
Even the most staunch racist white nationalists can feel emotion when seeing pictures of dead kids. I'm not saying that's what Hassan is. What I'm saying though is, long story short, Hassan crying one time doesn't count for much.
Yeah, you
Just
sure
doesn't
about that?
I'm sure it just doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean anything.
Wow, you opening my eyes here. You have, I think, a way of getting in your head that some people are bad, and
Nope. Didn't say Hassan was bad.
no, not in that way. You can. I mean, yes, you have said that Hassan is bad. You
I
have
mean, I
said
think he's
that you
bad. I
would
think he's
put.
bad. I think he's bad for the left. I think
Yes.
he's bad politically. I think he's a
Yeah.
detriment to his own side.
Yeah.
Do I think he's an evil
Yes.
person who's motivated by hatred and greed only and he has no soul? No, I don't think that about him.
No, I haven't said that. But you have said he's bad for the left, and you have said that of a few people. You have said when you get in your head that someone is bad for the movement or for a particular reason, I guess you
He's bad PR without
take it
providing any material
so.
advantage. That's it. Bad
He
PR,
provides a material
no material.
advantage.
What's the material advantage Hassan provides?
He gets a lot of people into the left, or at least
But he-
into a progressive standpoint.
How do you? But he doesn't get them into a progressive standpoint. First of all, because he's a campus, which means he's essentially operating essentially as a conservative. He's just oriented in a different direction. But more to the point.
I'm sorry.
More to the point. I don't
What's
see any
that word
reason.
you use?
I don't see any reason to think that he's growing the left as such. Just because Hassan has a big audience doesn't mean he's growing the base that forms that audience. That doesn't follow.
Okay. Right. What's that word you use? Sorry, at the beginning.
Which word?
He's a what?
It's a campist.
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 Can you define the word, please?
So when you think that okay, you know how on like Cold War maps there'd be like they color it in. There'd be like this giant red blob. That's the communist scourge. Then maybe you'll have like blue or something, and that's the domain of freedom. Okay.
Yeah.
Hassan takes that and he flips it. It's a campus.
Okay.
Yeah. Make sense?
Sure. So, not really. So according to you, you cannot provide. Oh well,
Here,
we
let me
cannot
give
provide
you
any proof that.
look. Let me Google it for you. Okay, we'll see if that helps you. Campist. Okay. Campism
Campist.
is the belief that the world is divided into large competing political groups of countries, or camps, and that people with left-wing politics should support one camp over the other camp.
Two camps.
I understand it's confusing because it sounds like he just really likes camping.
No.
Exactly.
I get it now. Yeah. It's two camps, left and right, communists and Nazis, I guess. Alright. So, what you're saying is we cannot provide any real evidence that despite his large audience, he's actually growing the movement in any particular way, not in a progressive way, not in a lefty way. He does not provide any growth despite everything and anything that he does.
I don't see any reason to see. I don't see any reason to infer from the fact that his audience is big that therefore he's growing the left. I also wouldn't necessarily characterize. I also wouldn't characterize Hassan as the left, so that's kind of moot either way.
Yeah, well, not the left, just a lefty or maybe a tanky, depending on what.
I mean, maybe by labeling, but like his tendencies are not really leftist in any meaningful sense. He's just critical of particular factions that are associated with right-wing or liberal loyalties, but that's not really enough. Like when you're talking about being on the left, you're talking about someone who is has a critical and deconstructionist attitude towards deconstruction is not the word, but like an attitude of critique and of deconstructing systems of oppression and so on and so forth, not taking sides in the conflict based on who hit who first or who was there first kind of thing. And that's kind of where that's kind of how Hassan works though. Like I point again to his total acceptance of the Chinese Communist Party brutalizing and dominating Tibet, Taiwan, etc.
For sure, that's what. Of course, he may also do some what's the name for this? he goes to work related work stoppages, for instance.
Yes, what? Sorry, say again.
And work stoppages.
Maybe my brain's not working, but I
demonstrate-
couldn't understand that word. Say that slowly.
Stoppages.
Stoppages? What's a stoppages?
Stoppages. Like when workers stop working to protest.
Oh, you mean
Work protest.
work stoppage? Oh, like strikes? You mean strikes?
Yeah, strikes. Yeah,
Okay.
that's the word. Sorry. Again, dumb fourth language.
That's okay.
He helped when the Netflix strike, for instance. That's I think that's kind of leftist, but maybe wrong here. I don't know.
I mean, strikes.
I
okay,
do.
I mean, first of all, like, sure, labor strikes, sure, good leftist thing to
Yeah,
support.
labor strikes. Yeah.
Not intrinsically leftist, as you will know if you are a good reader of Ayn Rand like myself. But generally, it's a safe bet.
I mean, maybe not in the States. Here in Spain, yeah.
Oh, where are you?
Spain.
Well, that's cool.
By the way, this is a message for you and for your chat. If you can spare $1 for the victims of the floods in Spain this past week, that would be awesome.
You have do you
just
have a
search-
charity you would recommend?
Just search for Paiporta.
Why don't you text it to me? I'll look it up and I'll post it.
Yeah, sure. I don't have a specific link, but if you,
I'll tell you
I
what.
don't know how to use Discord.
I'll ask around. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll find a charity and I'll post something. Thanks for reminding me.
Sure. Yeah, the floods were in Valencia, if that helps.
It doesn't, because I couldn't catch what you said. You spoke really fast. But if you write it to me in DMs, I will be able to see that and I can look up that.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I really don't know how to fucking use Discord. Sorry.
Just click on my. You see my icon there in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay. If you click on me, you can look at view profile. If you click view profile, you can direct message me.
View profile. Well, good. Okay, I'm gonna try it here. Sorry.
In fact, I think you can actually just message me directly from there if you just click on my face. It should say message at the bottom. Here, I'll do it first. Hi. There. You just respond to me. Got it?
Nope.
Check your DMs.
Damn, this is stupid. Check if you received something. I don't know.
Here,
I don't
I'll
know,
add you as a
mobile.
friend. I'll message you again later. But I messaged you just now, so if you look at your friend requests and your message requests, I should be there.
Thank you.
All right. Well,
This is so dumb.
it's all good.
Thank you very much.
Discord does
Yeah.
Take it easy. Thanks for calling in.
Oh, thank you.
Anything else?
Have a nice night. Thank you for having me. And
worries.
thank you for the chat.
Yeah, take it easy. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, there's one more person. I'm going to entertain them for a second, and then we're going to move on, because I got stuff to do. Hey, what's up?
Hey, Sunday.
Hey, what can I do for you?
First and foremost, let me just say I've tuned in a bit late today, later than usual at
Well,
least. Is it
Maybe,
true?
perhaps I will forgive you. Sorry.
Thank you very much. Is it true that it is your birthday today?
No, it is not my birthday today.
Is that right? Oh.
I made a Xander Hall meme earlier, and people have been punishing me for it ever since.
Oh, so I completely fell for it. Oh well. Regardless, it is still true, be it your birthday or not, that I truly appreciate your content for the past couple of years, and yeah, it's been making my days better, at least reasonably better, for the duration of my time in the chat, right? But
I was waiting for the butt. I was waiting for the butt. Go
Okay.
ahead.
No. It was just. I mean, doesn't make it any less true. But there is a prevailing thread
Okay.
I've been noticing lately with your talks with people about lefty streamers, content creators, and whatnot. And I just want to ask you a very broad, but I would assume also kind of like a it could be classified as a simple question, right? What would you consider the qualities of a good, quote unquote, leftist content creator to be, if such a thing even exists?
They demonstrate well thought out leftist values that are not sort of cynically put on as a skin because it's convenient at the moment, so that they don't embarrass us when they're challenged on them, or they don't end up having to fight with other people alongside them because they have to assert dominance over them when they are themselves challenged. That they exhibit sort of an actual conscience for people who are victims of systems of oppression, so on and so forth, regardless of where they end up falling as a consequence of just the historical sequence of events that led to how they got to where they are, and that they are not reckless and inflammatory in ways that do negative propaganda against progressives and against the left generally. So I think a quintessential example would be like a Sam Cedar type. He's excellent. I think the opposite case would be someone like
I mean, we were just talking about such an
Xanderhall. We're
individual.
talking about Vosh, talking
Yeah.
about Tyler. Like those people, FT Signifier sucks. A little less so, but still. Yeah.
I also feel like there's a quintessential difference between video essay types and streamers, right? Just because there seems to be a different mentality. that
Well,
goes-
video essayists are great. What I don't like are people who do video essays, but they're actually just streams without an audience. So like FT Signifier, Noah Samson, etc. They are not video essayists because they're not writing essays. They're doing what I'm doing right now. It's just there's nobody watching them live, so they don't have to deal with people judging them in real time, because that's stressful.
And
So-
also, I feel like you mentioned Noah. I don't know if you remember this, but about a month ago, I DM'd you about this. I don't think we ever got to it. But
I might have missed it. Hang on, let me see.
oh no, it's fine. It was nothing really. I was just confused a little bit because you did a thing where you reacted to something of Noah's. I can't remember what it was. I feel like it was one of his...
Noah's not like a personal friend. You're confused about why I went from being on good terms with Noah Samson to being critical of him.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
because
maybe there's something I missed.
That's
or-
because
or-
that's because when we first started interacting, that was in the context of me having common critiques of Vosh's treatment of Professor Flowers and certain issues, and we talked about that briefly. And then later on, he started to do some really stupid and I would say deeply unethical things, like for example, floating around spurious accusations against people in order to get attention, and I don't have any respect for that.
Yeah, and he also kind of, I mean, he's not the only one, but since we're talking about him, right? I feel like he kind of pivoted from the essay thing more towards kind of like a React style channel, at least lately.
Well, that's the
And I
that's the
just
problem.
don't
Again, like they're not video essayists. The whole like video essayist versus streamer thing is ill thought because no one's thinking of like who's that Atten Shea, I think his name is, the guy who does those really good like American history videos. Like someone like that. That's a
Oh,
video
yeah.
essayist. Noah Caldwell Gervais does like those long like video game. That's a video essayist. You look at H Bomber guy. That's a video essayist. These are planned productions they wrote out and they're very deliberate. Noah Samson and FT Signifier aren't video essayists. They are streamers without the balls to stream.
Yeah, and I more than that, really. It's just, I mean, of course, we're just agreeing at this point, but let me hyper agree with you on this. The thing is, I feel like they just, it's not only that they kind of misuse the format in that sense, they are also approaching it in a non-research, not effectively like a non-essay, non-writer type of way. They're just, it's you know what I mean?
Yep.
It just feels very, it feels very instant, so to speak.
Well, it's lazy.
And yeah,
It's lazy because they're just reacting to stuff in private without people watching them, without paying attention to people correcting them in real time, and they have the wonderful advantage of being able to just completely ignore the audience.
But because there is no audience, right?
Well, there's a huge audience, but
one-
it's an audience for a product, not for them. That's the difference. See, I have to be responsive to people because that's a part of why people come. Is for the actual community aspect. Noah Sampson, not so much. In fact, he deleted his Discord server. He got rid of his community. He didn't like that part. He wants to make money sitting on his ass, and with no strings attached, which I sympathize with. But
So he essentially pulled a Stephen Bonnell and purged everyone.
God, no. I mean, no, he did purge everybody, but Stephen Bonnell didn't. Whatever else can be said about Destiny, he didn't. He's run from people who disagreed with him, but he didn't run away from the pressures of the spotlight. I can't criticize him for that.
Yeah, that much is true. I might have misused the example, just because he's been really annoying lately, right? But one last thing before I go, like
Mhm.
looking at the space as it is now, right?
Mhm.
How are we to approach lefty content creation, be it video essays, be it in a more
Make it
traditional
entertaining
way?
and informative. Don't worry about making a difference in the world. You're not going to. The political potency of this medium is basically non-existent. The good that you can do is to make the people around you take an interest in different topics and maybe provide some insight into them if you have special training or you've done special work with respect to one of them, or like a lot of work with respect to one of them, and focus on community building and informing each other and so on and so forth, and providing a therapeutic release for people who want like-minded people to listen to when they're crashing at the end of the day. That's basically it. Because there's no you're not making a difference politically with YouTube or with Twitch. It's just not happening.
I'm assuming, I might assume wrongly, so correct me if I'm wrong, but
Oh.
I'm just assuming, seeing as how your audience comes off very kind of like an extension of your channel, right?
Yeah.
I'm just assuming you didn't pay that much attention to audience capture, quote unquote, and sorry for my liberal vernacular, when you were coming up, or was there any sort of strategy to audience?
I didn't quite follow that. Sorry. What about my apologies. My brain's not working today. What about audience capture?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Have you essentially what I'm asking is, have you ever put any thought in like audience building and audience capture, or did it just follow naturally from you?
Well, it followed from what I do, so I don't have to worry about audience capture because I captured the audience.
No.
Yeah. But like I think I did sort of subconsciously what Kidnakin is doing deliberately, which I appreciate. If you're familiar with Kidnakin, really good channel.
Oh.
But his approach has been to really focus on just doing what he wants to do as well as possible and sort of doing his own thing. And that's kind of what I started off doing. And I have found generally that it is much more advantageous to just completely to slow build that way than to try and sort of cynically reach for things that I'm not good at or I don't have a passion for, because at best I get people coming in who disappear the next day because they're not interested in me or what I do. They're interested in the topic. And frankly, like the audience I have pays very well as a joke sometimes, as we've seen today, and it's very annoying, but they pay very well, so they support me a lot, and they're actually fun to talk to. So it's actually a good community as opposed to like an empty, toxic community that doesn't care for what I do at all, and has to constantly be reshuffled. So,
Yeah, that's great to hear. Great to hear.
yeah.
Yeah, it's getting really late on my end, so I think I'm gonna crash
Yeah,
out.
no worries. Where are you at, by the way, if you don't mind me asking?
Slovenia.
Slovenia.
Europe. Yep.
That's
We're
interesting.
it's almost 1 o'clock, 1 a.m.
Still no Canadians in my audience, alas.
Yeah, sad. It's a sad
I
state
mean,
of
Cal's
affairs.
there. Cal's count.
All right.
All right, take it easy. Thanks for
care.
calling in. Ciao.
And happy birthday.
It's not my birthday. Go away. That kid earned a fan from me. I would love to see him talk to Tide. Oh my god, Gab, it is not my birthday. Stop that. But thank you for the 99 Ron. We're 2 out of 5 to the goal. Remember, if we get to the goal, I will personally make you an omelet in your house in an apron with nothing else. All right. Yeah, so anyways, let's go back to this very quickly, and then we'll get to a theory segment, okay? So I want to start doing 3 books a month at roughly 30 a day. The 30 pages a day is a goal for me, not for you. Basically what this means is I'm going to be covering 30 pages either of one of these or collectively out of all 3 every single day. And when I come on stream, I will possibly, depending on where I am in that, continue the reading on stream. And I'll talk a little bit about where I'm coming from prior to that, so it's not just out of the blue with nothing there. With the goal being by the end of by like the start of the Canadian election season, say, I will be very well informed and very prepared to debate, because that's what I'm kind of looking for. Looking at the building tall strategy. I don't want to do the Dean Withers Destiny thing where you go on drugs and exhaust yourself absorbing a lot of factoids off Wikipedia. I want to actually know the shit. So to know the shit, you got to take time and go slow. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it proper. That's the goal. Make sense? Canadians have elections? Alas, they do. You want to take the Skinwalker route? Have you seen what happens to people who take the Skinwalker route? Even the successful ones, they look terrible at the end. And I'm not starting from a particularly high place. I can't afford that. Vyvanse would not be kind to me. It might actually be very kind for a short while, but I'm not taking that chance. I've got an exercise bike and I got books. We're gonna run with that. Did you notice the dono? Which dono? The Gab one? Yeah, I did. Was there another one? Did I miss one from you? Nope, I don't think so. Sunday, don't forget the weights. I also have weights. Although I think cardio is where it's at for me. Mostly. I've got the... Not really worried about building up muscle. I do push-ups constantly anyways. Worried about burning more calories than I'm consuming. We're going to run with that. That's not how you use an exercise bike. It is when you're strong. Just carry that on my back. Just... It's a portable folding one, so you can do that. Sunday skips leg day confirmed. I never skip leg. I walk everywhere. Is that Goodreads? No, this is MS Paint. I was going to use Goodreads, but then I realized I'm going to dox myself so fast if I connect it to my Amazon account. So yeah, so that's what we're going to do. Okay. Still figuring out what the third one to put here is going to be. Although, you know what? Let's put another red square down here, okay? I know what's going down here. So let's do... I still have to read Abstract from the Concrete. That's been on my list for a little while, and it's short. But it's... I have to do that one still. Tiny book. Tiny book. Pop that. We'll pop that here. That'll be 1 month's. Because it's short. A nice short one. And I think we need to do Ottoman Empire one. We'll do, actually, you know what? I feel like we'll do Osman's Dream. Do Osman's Dream. By the way, the paperback of this is terrible, okay? At least the one I got. I'm not... Off my screen. I'm not happy with the paperback of Osman's Dream at all. At all. Not a bit. Not a bit. The way it's bound, the text is way too close to the spine, so you have to like peel that thing open to read the center text, and I really don't like that. So Osman's Dream. By the way, chat, feel free to give book suggestions. I've got history majors in here. Chapter Black, thanks to the $5 US. Happy unbirthday to you, Mr. President. Unbirthdays are acceptable. It is my own birthday, this is true. You will hate them, but nothing better than burpees for cardio IMO. I will die. Destiny actually said on stream today that he had read more long reads than anyone else. What? He'd read more long reads? The fuck is a long read? I actually don't know. What is a long read? What's a... What is a long read? What is that? A book that is long? What's all this then, Brooks? Why don't you call in? You'll have suggestions. And Daedalus, if you're around, you call in. Is long read a slang for book? No, I think long read is just a long article. Wig, thank you for the 50 gifted memberships. It's very kind of you. Appreciate it. And no birthday message either. Oh, there's presents on it. God damn it. And Wig, thank you for the 220 try. Happy birthday, President. Birthday. I take that back. I hate you too. It's not a long book. He was talking about the history of Israel. But he didn't read the history books of Israel. I know because the people who were trying to encourage him to read books on Israel couldn't get him to read. Lazy bastard didn't read Jack. He read specifically articles because he can get the factoids he wanted to argue about without having to contextualize them and understand the actual things that were taking place. It's why you end up with him knowing a ton of like Wikipedia facts, but saying really stupid things. Like, I don't know if I would consider it a genocide if they nuked Gaza. After all of that, by the way, he was like, I'm starting to feel sympathetic for all these people who couldn't remember all of the facts to hand right off the bat when we debated, because I'm losing all that information now. Like, wow. And here's the worst part. See, a scholar studies some political topic for a long period of time. They'll lose the facts very frequently because there's a lot of them. And the way memory works is you don't remember stuff unless you have like multiple routes to the thing that remind you of it. This is why people use mimetic devices to remember things, because you like muscle movements and rhymes and stuff like that. They are keys to pathways to memories that you formed. If things are like super particular and they don't have a lot of connections to other things, finding your way back to that fact is very difficult. But one of the things that those people retain, that's actually the use of it, is that they start to understand the nature of the dynamics. They start to get a feel for what kinds of things were taking place, what kinds of forces were at play, and so on and so forth. And so they understand a conflict, even if the details sometimes have to be refreshed. Destiny only has the details. He doesn't have the rest. So what Destiny's done for the entire year is pour sand through a sieve, and it's just gone. It's not how you learn. It's very bad. It's one of the important things about university is that they teach you how to learn. And you can do that without university. It's just very difficult. John Drayling, thanks for the 5 Australian, I think. You should have more birthday on stream more often. Have some Monopoly money. Thank you. Although I'm in Canada right now, so, calling your money Monopoly money is... Sunday left you a meme gift in your DMs on Discord. What's this? Oh my god. Oh. I'm in FT Signifier's most recent video, and this is how you rated me on a tier list. It's over. I mean, accurate. Accurate. I'd say D, but he has charisma. You can't deny that. Man. Actually, you know what? Oh no. Oh no. Oh no, it's so over. Recently discovered this West Side Tyler guy's streams and he seems super chill. Why is everyone always so mean to him? He seems like such a nice guy. Leave him alone, y'all. Oh no, Tipster, the albatross has found you. Curtains now. President Sunday, one of the funnier election copes is from FT Signifier. To be honest, you can probably guess, but it was all idpoll. Really? Can you link me that? Link me that in the DMs. Oh man, I'm so looking forward to this. So Tipster Tyler team up inbound. It's happening. It's happening. Is Tipster being sarcastic? I don't know. It's Tipster. It's Tipster. Tipster, you have the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever right now, okay? All will be forgiven. All will be forgiven. Hello.
Well, hello. I've been waiting for a little bit.
Yeah, because you keep going into the waiting room like you're a pauper or something. You just call me.
No, I'd rather not.
Alright, now why don't you tell me why my reading list idea is stupid?
I have no idea why it's stupid. I literally just joined the stream and there's a reading list.
Yeah.
All right, what's on it?
Well, I've
'Cause
got
I
it
like
in
reading lists.
I've got it in blocks, and the idea is just sort of like a constant background passive workhorse type approach to history readings and filling in gaps and just getting generally conversant with stuff that I wish I was more conversant with. So I've got little blocks that are based around a theme. So for example, I've got one here in a red square. That's just sort of a general history of American capital kind of thing. I've got the half has never been told. Geez, can't speak. The Great Divergence by Kenneth Pomeranz. I'm thinking of a third one for a general history of the colonization of the Americas. I've got 1491 by Charles C. Mann. I've got Empires of the Atlantic World by J.H. Eliot. For Russia, I've got A People's Tragedy, Lenin's Tomb. I might just throw in The Gates of Europe there.
I probably won't have a ton of like specific history books. There's very few that I've found like engrossing or interesting because I tend not to care about like specific facts about things and instead sort of more ethnological studies.
Well, I'm similar, which is one of the reasons why I'm yeah.
Half has never been told, obviously. I mean, I think I'm the one who even recommended it to you.
You were. And I've read like a good chunk of it. It's very worth it.
I also see my favorite concrete book on there.
You do.
So that's happy. I tend towards, I would add personally, Oriental Despotism.
Oriental Despotism.
From Whitfogel. I think I've mentioned it to you a couple times.
I don't think you've mentioned that one to me once.
Sure I have. This is the idea of how state power was first formed due to the nature of how water worked inside of the Near East to Far East. And Whitfogel, who was a Marxist, who was deeply critical of Marxists in the West because they were pro-Stalin and he fucking hated the USSR and said they weren't communists. So, I mean, he's got points there, right? But it's a stunning book that kind of goes through like the material conditions that actually created what we understand to be state power and despotism.
All right. Just keep shooting them at me, okay?
All right, once I have to turn my head. Let's see, what else do I have in here?
I have to find a copy of this that doesn't cost $1,000.
I have a PDF.
I like hard copies.
Well, good luck. It's $55, I think, for a shitty paperback.
That's fine. I can do a shitty paper. I learned by annotating. It helps me remember things.
Most of my stuff lately has to do with.
By the way, you'll want to know this in advance for your own stuff. You're super crackly today for some reason. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Oh, well, that's weird. It's fucking stupid. One sec.
No worries.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
Yeah, damn, you cannot find a copy of this book in print that's not like $100. That is rough. Fine, I'll do the PDF. God damn it. Oh, here's a $6 one. It's a soft cover from 1963, though. That's not going to hold up. Oh, he's gone. Hello?
Testing. Hello.
Hello. Now you're really quiet.
Well, it's fucking production sometimes.
What are you doing in your studio? It's like every single time you log off, the whole thing resets. I've never seen someone with such an expensive setup have so many audio problems. Is he gone again? No, he's still there. He just tisked at me very angrily. That book looks ancient, because it is ancient. It's from the 60s. I want to get the hardcover of Seeing Like a State. But for a nice, one in good condition, it's so expensive. Plus, I have a feeling the paper quality is going to be as low as the paperback one. And the paperback one is sewn binding anyway, so it'll hold up. It's a weird book, though. It's got, like, really cheap paper stock, but then they sew it. So, like, what's going on? It's weird. Very weird. Hey, Brooks, I can't hear you. Oh, he's gone again. Yeah, that's how you know he's a real leftist. Probably has his whole setup plugged into his PC. Yeah, probably, actually. Hey, Sunday, what's your top 3 video games? It's going to be very sentimentally motivated, unfortunately. It's going to be Majora's Mask, Ocarina of Time, and, for sentimental value, I'm going to say Medal of Honor Rising Sun. Maybe Donkey Kong 64. Bloodborne? Nah, not my top 3. None of the Souls games are my top 3. My top games are all from before the Souls games were a thing. We're talking about, like, games in the last 10 years. Dark Souls last 10 years? Hang on, when's Dark Souls 1 out? Nope, 2011. 13 years old. Damn. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Most of my favorite games are old. Very old. Nier Automata was very good. Very good. Dead Space was good. I got a lot of use out of Cruelty Squad. Hey, we back in One Piece now?
We should be. You should generally be able to hear me. Let me know when it's a decent level.
Okay.
Pretty good?
You sound great.
All right, excellent. Oh, good lord. I was editing, and so whenever I go into that, I have to switch from the ASIO drivers to the WDM, and it is a whole fucking deal. You don't care about any of that. That's fine.
No, I do. I do. I just read something that's mildly horrifying me.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
No, it's awful. Tyler's really excited about Trump's plan to redirect money being spent on Ukraine towards tent cities, ignoring the fact that it includes banning urban camping and arresting violators. So the entire point is to basically get homeless people out into the wilderness.
Well, that sounds great.
Oh, it's fantastic.
So let's see. I would recommend generally, I'm going to add it here. I'm just going to run through some books. Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready.
Okay. So first, anything by Godelier is going to be pretty much at the top of my list. Him or Grial. Godelier is Godelier. Enigma of the Gift, Metamorphosis of Kinship. He wrote the definitive work on Levi Strauss. Just a wonderful Marxist anthropologist who just does astonishing work across kind of everything. So really, really fantastic books across the board. Grial does more direct ethnographic works. It's more early 19th century, but they're really fascinating and interesting sort of dives that we can't have anymore. Most tribes that have been contacted long ago. So the early days of being able to
how do you spell his name?
Grial is Griaule.
Okay.
And he's done a handful. I mean, just again, everything he's done is pretty excellent. But they're much more direct ethnographic works, living with a tribe, all of that. And he wrote about a tribe in Kenya. It's one of the more famous, the men who play the Men of Fire. There's the Holmes de Flambe. It's wonderful, really great. I would also recommend Brodel. So Brodel does sort of has a trilogy. Sorry, I have my glasses on. 1 second. Fuck, I'm getting old. God damn it.
You really are.
So I was playing Satisfactory with someone on your server who let me know that their parents are younger than me. That was a fucking weird moment.
How old were they?
23.
Oh, they got started early.
No, really. That's 2021. It's normal. Brodel, The Wheels of Commerce, the Perspective of the World, and the Structures of Everyday Life. It is basically civilization and capitalism. It's a 3-part series, and it is kind of a defining work of the history of us as people. I would put that in there. It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites, and it's great.
Okay.
So that would be. Let's see. Who else do I have in here? I've got a bunch of just sort of random stuff that's not really that interesting.
I feel like a capital reading group would be good.
I mean, the New Capital translation is excellent.
It's very. How far are you in it, by the way? Assuming you've got
halfway.
time.
About halfway.
You're fucking lying. You're not halfway through the New Capital.
I've had it literally since the day it came out, and
I've had it since
like
the month it came out. There's okay, sure.
What? It's great. It's so good. I just went to Powell's. I sold my fucking other copies of Capital. I was like, I'm done. I don't need them. I'll keep the PDFs of that shit. This is the one I want.
The Penguin one
It's great.
The Penguin one is awful in the hand.
I have the 3-part gigantic. I had the 3-part gigantic one and the Penguin and another one. I don't care. There's another great compendium, Man's Role in Changing the Face of the Earth. It is, if you can find it, it's a beast of a book. But essentially, it is an encyclopedia of all the things about how man changed the face of the earth, like quite literally, how we inscribed ourselves on the earth.
Interesting.
And it's fantastic. It's not super modern. It's a mid-century 1950s, but it's very thorough, and it's less a book to like read all the way through and more as it's a book, and the next one I mention is the same thing. It's a book that should be a reference, and probably is in a lot of colleges. So I'm not like recommending you
I'd like to read through it. It's like, it's the kind of thing where you find stuff in it.
Yeah, you're gonna find other things. You go, oh, I'm curious. Then you go look it up, because the other one is Man, Settlement, and Urbanism, which is another compendium of articles and references on a lot of that stuff. That would be that. Like those are my big ones. Like those are the ones that are less on the philosophical side, more history based, more anthropology.
What I'm specifically looking for, like with here, I'm gonna put these aside because these are going to be really useful generally as like additional readings to this. What I'm looking for specifically is getting sort of a structured, not to Wikipedia tier historical analysis that gives you, in hopefully slightly more than broad strokes, like a general understanding of the actual history of these items of interest, right? So like a history of like the development of American economy and the roots of like America's modern wealth and power and whatnot. Like that's a super useful thing to have down in depth, at the very least, to have like sort of like the mechanism sort of internalized. And that's kind of what I'm looking for with this section here, as an example.
So some challenges.
Yeah.
It is not really going to be possible to thoroughly do that without having an understanding of how America works.
Yeah.
Like saying, oh, here's how things came about. Like, for example, The Half Has Never Been Told, a story of slavery and American capitalism.
Yeah.
Why is it a story of American capitalism? Well, it's because it's actually the introduction and creation of the first, not only insurance market, but futures market, and also insurance against loans, which was founded by the company that Chase would then go on to purchase, and it would become, Chase is kind of a big deal. There's a handful of others that sort of came out of literally the slave trade. And so when you find out, like, well, how does the futures market work into this? And it's like, oh, fuck. And you start seeing how these things go. It's necessary to have I would argue, a very good grasp on how things work today in order to be able to see it. Because I think one of the great challenges we have is most people don't understand how the world actually operates. I don't know if I was talking about with you, the world of logistics is one of my favorites to dive into. And that book, The Deadly Life of Logistics, is phenomenal.
I would like hop to that immediately. Like I flat out don't know how the world works. And it's like,
right.
Here's the thing though. I've made more than a modest attempt to get it, and can't, because there's just too much.
Yeah. Well, it's a question
and there's
like
traps too, because it's like you can specialize in something, and you can become just completely blind as a result, just have total tunnel vision.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's a simplified view of how things operate leads to people saying things like Jeff Bezos makes X number of dollars per hour and you only make 10 or 20, which is not how it works, because that's literally the lie and the problem with comparing capital to commodity currency. And so when you have these moments of complete misunderstanding that then inform people's entire basis, and then they go back and they read, then they are like you're already in the wrong place. And so, I mean, I don't have an answer for that. More challenging for sure. And again, I'm not a sort of hard history guy. I have my thing lately has been just the Weimar Republic and understanding the sort of space of the communist radical movement there.
Well, thanks for reminding me, because actually I was going to make a section on that as well, because there are 3 books in particular I wanted to look at to that end. There's a book on the communist revolution. There's a book on obviously there's the what's his name, Eric Weitz's Weimar book. That's kind of simple. And I wanted to get a good grasp on that as well. So
I would to add to that, as again a reference, the Weimar Republic source book is phenomenal. It's gigantic. If you can find a copy, I don't know if there's a PDF anywhere. It's much more of a reference piece, but it's basically a collection of articles and opinion pieces for the last 10 years of the Weimar Republic that very much is like a researched, not really narrativized thing. It's just in there and translated to English. The best book on it, though, I think, is Between Reform and Revolution.
Yeah.
That really, I think, dives into those specific things and speaks to it very well, as Weimar Radicals, which is literally what it sounds like. And sort of talking about the radicals of the day, which Nazis were actually, at least they were playing as. But again, that's in hindsight, everything is what it is. So I would, those would be for like, that tends to be my more harder stuff.
Yeah.
When it comes to like history, aside from the anthropology and
The Weimar source book, so it's called.
The Weimar Republic source book by Kaes, Kaees.
The black and white cover, right?
Correct. There's a little bit of red on the
KSJ and
spine.
Diamondberg. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
It's phenomenal. Germany, the power in power and eclipse from I want to say it's Pollock and Thomas is also great.
Weimar Promise and Tragedy is super basic, but it is a really good introduction.
All right. Germany in Power and Eclipse is fascinating. I guess maybe I'm not getting a feel for what you're actually going for, though, still.
Well, okay, look at it this way. I want to be absorbing stuff passively as I'm doing other things in the background as like an exercise.
Okay.
So I'm getting a decent critical education on these different stuff that would typically be relegated to history, but not getting it on the cheap. So like, for example, my the most shaky one on the list here that I have is Charles C. Mann and Plocky's Gates of Europe. It's not because of anything in particular against them. It's just that the way in which they were marketed and the time in which they came out makes me think that, oh, these ones had a particular ideological value which caused them to be a bit more popular, but they might be prone to editorializing, or they might be prone to like sort of a shallow kind of like rote, almost Wikipedia tier, like sequence of events type of analysis. Not my experience so far with Plocky. He starts off with like the early Greek colonization of the north of the Black Sea, but like, yeah.
So again, this becomes like the historicity concept is a question of fact and interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two things that matter.
Yeah.
If you're wanting facts, I'm definitely the wrong person to talk to. If you're wanting interpretation alongside it, I would say Brodell would be the place to start. And when I say start, I mean flatly start. And anything else should sort of come from an understanding of how Brodell teaches history and how he speaks of how things started. Should branch from there. So when he's talking about Europe and the movement of capital and how these things work, these are the material conditions that ultimately will absolutely shape everything. And from there, you can become specific. But if you start specific and then make your way to Brodell, you'll be finding ways for Brodell to fit around your facts rather than work with interpretation.
Yeah.
So Brodell would be my main recommendation for like giant book. And then alongside that would be Worms and Cheese.
Worms and Cheese.
I got turned on to it. There's a reading for it in the QC that just got started. Cheese
Brooks
and
is
Worms.
turned on by Cheese and Worms. Remember that.
I am now, actually. It's a
It's
phenomenal.
the cheese and the worms.
I don't give a fuck. But it's like the story of a miller, a 16th century miller, and what he lived and how he lived, and it's really fantastic, actually.
Cheese and the Worms.
But again, this would be like, these are like backbone history books that then you branch out from it.
Yeah. Okay. And what was that other one I had? Hang on, there's
I'm excited because I got a whole bunch of cool books yesterday for my trade-ins.
oh, what you got? November 1918. That's when I was thinking of the German Revolution.
I got Montague's Immortality, Yaquis Post Europe, which is beautiful. I can't say his name. He wrote Divine Kingship in Africa. It's a shame that's what his name is. It's the F word. His William F. Word is his name. Just his name with 2 G's.
Oh,
and
that
I got a
F word.
couple-
I was okay.
Yeah. That's his real name, and he's a great writer. He's actually done good stuff. It's good. And then I got Nietzsche's Daybreak and All Too Human in Cambridge. I got a 1925 38-plate anthropological study in Chinese baskets.
That is very
love that
specific.
It is. I love that stuff. I have a bunch of shit like that. So, and then I also got Yaqui's Question Concerning Technology in China. Because I don't have enough Yaqui.
Never get enough Yaqui.
So those would be my list. I would recommend the best thing you can do really is Ask Historians is a place on Reddit I can always recommend anyone go to. They are exceptionally well moderated. They're very careful about it, and they have professors and postdocs and doctoral students who spend literal hours answering questions in multiple comments, and it's amazing. And they will recommend secondary reading. It's how I found like all the books about the rise of the Nazis I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It was from a back and forth on Ask Historians, because they're just really wonderful and very open to talking about stuff. So easily recommend it every time. And then the other is I would recommend, it's always fun, Best Podcast, Radio War Nerd. They do a lot of books that are pretty fantastic. The one I tend to recommend from them, it's probably for this list, is Autumn of the Black Snake, which is about the forming of the U.S. Army and the Unnamed War, which was the first real war the United States had. It got its ass kicked, so we never named it. Caused us to form the Army, which was then headed by a Spanish spy, because we were stupid from the start. And we wanted to kill a bunch of those guys because Washington wanted their land in order to sell it to pay back debts from the war. So he was Trump. It's kind of amazing, actually. Really good book. Really well written. That if you can find anything else from that guy, I'd recommend him in anything. But Radio War Nerd's a great source for like a lot of really interesting, unexpected books.
Should do some Gustosi as well.
Gustosi is a given. The Art of Coercion it's so good, dude. Art of Coercion's so good.
Islamic State in Khorasan province. Have you looked at his book on the Taliban?
We read it together.
No, we looked at his book on ISIS. We read the Islamic State in Khorasan together.
I have Decoding the New Taliban. It's great.
Decoding the New Taliban. That's a newer book.
Oh. Well, and I don't know the other one you're talking about.
The other one was Gustosi. It's just the Taliban at war.
I do not have it.
Okay, that was his earlier one.
I'm sure it's excellent. Literally everything he does is insane.
This is the one he did before the Islamic State in Khorasan.
And just because chat's asking, the Unnamed War was against the Shawnee, and 2 heroes that people don't know about on the native side, Blue Jacket and Little Turtle, who were fucking crazy warriors. Did some really cool shit. It's a good Autumn of the Black Snake, very good read. It's like prose, but it's a really fucking well-sourced history book.
It's also got to be really embarrassing going home and telling people that the little turtle whipped your ass. Just sounds funny.
Well, yeah, maybe less so when it's your head is attached to your horse and nothing else is there.
Probably feels better under those conditions, honestly.
I think that's a way to get home.
A Gustosi month. Autumn of the Black Snake. I'll order that tonight. They'll work out more. I want some good stuff on Ukraine as well. Radio War Nerd probably has a bunch of suggestions for that. I've been listening to
insane amount of shit.
I've been listening to their podcast recently on just the absolute state of things. It's so depressing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's what I like about them is they are, and I don't tend to do like this kind of language, but I
Yeah.
will say it about Mark Games and John Dolan is they are like they're dyed in the wool, true old school leftists. Like they care about things. They don't really give a fuck about the other side. They care about power and how power is being exercised. And the way they talk about things, because they have connections deep in Russia and deep in Ukraine, is horrific. It's horrific, and it's everything that's happening there is they don't mince words. They were the ones who broke the stories on Yemen and how many dead there were,
Yeah.
and then they kept harping on it. You can see it on their podcast if you weren't listening. They were like, there's been over 10,000 children starved to death in Yemen because of a U.S. blockade. This was
Yeah.
a very long time ago now.
Yeah.
And Obama was helping it, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, more are dying, but they kept showing like news articles from that week, or they'd play a news clip, or it's like 10,000 Yemeni children. And it'd be like 2 years later, it's like 10,000 Yemeni children. It's like, that's fucking weird.
Yeah. 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 Was the Devil's Chessboard good?
Devil's Chessboard. How do I know that?
David Talbot. I'm looking at the War Nerds Reddit.
No, I think I have it here.
I'm sure you
I'm trying
have
to
it.
remember what it was.
It's the Rise of the CIA.
Oh yeah. Oh god, all their intelligence stuff is so fucking good. A really interesting one is Silk Glove Hegemony.
Silk Glove Hegemony?
Yes. I found it used in a bookstore. Someone recommended it to me, and it's pretty solid.
Oh, that's an old one.
That's why it's very interesting in a time when people were not.
Voyantis?
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, it's from a time when people were a little more open.
Well, that's only $11. I can get that. Nice.
Yeah. It's fascinating because
Finnish
it's about
Soviet relations. We'll add that to the Soviet.
There
one.
you go. But what it is, and it shouldn't be really associated with the Soviet one. It can be because it's kind of part of that. But what's much more interesting is how the dynamic between Finland and Russia has lasted as long as it has. And so generally speaking, people talk about how hard power is visited, especially when you've got like tiny Finland and giant Russia. But how soft power can actually be utilized from a position of disadvantage is kind of incredible. And that's the idea, is like how you get this sort of soft sphere system they call running, and we're able to build in the position they were through clever diplomacy. It's actually really worth reading just for understanding that it isn't simply that countries are self-interested monsters. They're self-interested sociopaths. There's a difference. I don't know if that made sense.
That did. Just trying to add this to my cart before it disappears. Why is it 31 now? It said it was 11. What the hell? Using collectible from 11. Let's see, hardcover. But then it's just a 31. So it's lying. Weird. Very weird. Unless. Why is it doing that? Oh, I see, because it's got a...
I'm gonna presume Canada.
No, this is an American page. It's bizarre. Whatever, I'll go digital. I need to stop buying my books anyways. Okay. Legacy of Ashes, about the CIA by Tim Wiener. Legacy of Ashes.
Dimmock's book, The Origin of Capitalism in England, is likewise interesting. But again, I would say Braudel should be your first, and that's the one. It's a 3-book series.
Yeah.
100% they're in PDFs. I actually really like how the hardcovers look and how they are, because it's a very unique tripartite set.
Yeah.
But it's really solid.
I'm also on the lookout for books on Soviet history that aren't like from a liberal triumphalist point of view, because it's very difficult to find. Like Orlando Figes I hate it when they do this. He spends a lot of time really focusing on how evil Lenin is. I don't care, and it's distracting.
I went through a phase where I looked into a lot of this. I have a recommendation somewhere. I'll have to figure out where the fuck it went, though.
Okay. It doesn't all have to be today. This is like a years-long thing. Or months-long thing,
That's
at least.
Fine. But Fernand Braudel should be top of your list. Structures of Everyday Life. Phenomenal series.
All right. How's the substance essay coming?
That's what I was editing before you interrupted, and now it's going to fuck up my audio, and I have to go back in and set
I
a whole bunch of stuff
I
up.
just saved your audio.
It's already recorded. I'm editing the actual video.
Oh, well then, you should check the recording.
You fucking.
Let's see, Structures of Everyday Life. Ooh, is that a 3-volume one for $10? No.
If you can find any of them, if it's hardcovers for $10, you should just snap it up, because the quality doesn't even matter at that point.
I am snapping it up. I've got a copy for $10. What the fuck? What's the shipping though? Is that going to be like
$75?
$5? I'm getting that. It's going to have
I have a first edition that got corrections pasted into it. I always love when that happens.
So this should be
So,
arriving in December.
On page 34, the penultimate paragraph should read. I love that. Fuck, this book's good.
Doesn't even...
This is solid shit. Fuck, I forgot how good this was.
Why is this so cheap?
I don't know. People don't know what they have. I think I got a copy for like 15 or 20 bucks.
Yeah, but on Amazon it's weird because you see immediately what other people are selling it for. So it's like...
No, sometimes it just gets added automatically if like you sign up with like Abe Books or a few others. It might just repopulate other sites.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. That would make sense. EH Carr?
Not enough familiarity.
Okay. I have to finish the substance tonight so we can talk about it. In fact,
Yes.
if you're not busy later tonight, I'd be down for a late night stream. We can bump theory to then. We can talk about that. And I'll have finished this horrible, horrible movie. It's really good, actually.
I'd rather finish editing this and then have that be a thing that you can respond to and we can talk through.
Oh, I see. Okay. You're going to use me for promoting your own material. I see how it is.
Correct. Well, I'm a Sunday orbiter.
This is true. Along with Queeman. And although, you know, it's funny, Tyler mentions me a lot more than Queeman does. A lot more than Kidnockin does, dear God. How does Kid feel about being a Sunday orbiter?
Same as I do. It's like, we talk sometimes. Like,
I don't even
Yeah,
think you
probably.
could say we talk sometimes. I think I've talked to him in the past year twice. I think it's literally been twice.
well, it's again, I think people have a really weird view of shit when they start talking about like orbiters and things. And because I don't like, orbiters are where you literally are doing a lot of your content with other smaller streamers and
Yeah.
they're integral to what you're doing. And when that setup is like that network is so tight,
Mhm.
and that's what it's because everyone does this. Destiny did this. This is how he set up his entire world. It was brilliant. Got a lot of people who are really dependent upon him for their own view count, and he has his own community that's kind of theirs. That, like, you're not nothing against you. You ain't even close to big enough to justify that. And most of everyone, like, we have crossover, and so does Kid Not Kin, so does Ico, but like none of us is like 100% you, or I wouldn't even say like 50%. We have a lot of weird sort of crossover.
I think
because
Kid is
we're
more. I
weird-
think Kid is more Ico than me.
I don't know. Maybe.
But maybe it's biased because the ones that I recognize from Aiko's chat stick out, but I notice a lot from Aiko's chat. I think it's that whole kind of
There's a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people who like watching shit. And it's how they find people, but it's not like, I don't know. Like if you and I feuded, like what would happen? I don't know.
Epic content would ensue. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, it would be so fucking boring. Trying to think of other good books.
Well, I know where you live, so I just like we'd just be mailing
This is
each other.
true.
We'd be mailing each other ordnance.
It's not accurate for me, FBI.
So now you know I'd win.
Yep. I mean, probably. I mean, probably not. It's Canada. I don't have a lot else. I think
I mean, we
most
were
of the other
trained off the
stuff I have-
FLQ. I'd be pretty safe. We know how to deal with that.
Most of the other works I have are going to be more on the philosophical, thoughtful side rather than the factual setup thing there. So it's kind of like, man, that's going to be my addition to your list.
Well,
Honestly, though,
that helps
I would-
quite a bit. Thank you very much. Sorry?
I would make sure in there that you have a book on symbolic logic, because everyone should know it, and if they aren't, they should, because it's how you avoid saying really odd, dumb shit on YouTube. Just take a second and go, oh God, I didn't even notice that. That is improper, and you're good. That would be in my list.
Are there any good
else did
like pieces of training software for that? That must be a thing they've done.
There is nothing as good as Copy's symbolic logic.
Yeah, but that's a book. I need something that
Yeah.
I can turn into content. That I can turn into money, Brooks. I need to monetize my self-education. It's kind of my whole business
Yeah,
plan
there's
here.
probably something. I don't know. Maybe I should build a website that does that.
Maybe
That
you
would be
should build.
something.
Maybe you
I'd
should
make
build a
few bucks that way.
website. Maybe you should build a website that does that. I would contribute to that Patreon.
That's actually not a bad idea. Huh.
That'd be an awesome idea.
Interesting.
Should totally do that. Actually, just have like little like short. You could even just use copies as a basis. I think it's open to public domain now.
Oh yeah, no, it's fucking old as shit.
Yeah.
And still nothing is better. And then you move to set theory and then category theory. Because those are, I mean, it's all a big stupid game. Trying to think if I have any other good smaller books that might work, but Castro's Cannibal Metaphysics.
That
If
is.
you're talking about
that is a really
history,
good
that
book.
would be in there. That
is a
would be
really
in
good
it.
book. I read that already. Remember, I talked about it on stream.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Good.
I was all excited because you were telling me about how a guy who got taught under the guy said I didn't fuck it up. Great.
That's true. That's right. That's what Roger said. Roger knows. Roger almost worked for him. Let's see. I don't know. I got a lot of other more contemporary ones, but those are going to be like, those are the solid ones. And then beyond that, it's like, there's just a fuck ton of really good history books and great authors out there. Like just a ton. So I'd say like Ask Historians would be a stop in Radio War Nerd, and then you'd be able to burn through.
Yeah,
all
I
those
might put a
pretty
post on Ask Historians. I'll see if Radio Warner's published any reading lists recently.
They will delete your post. So whatever you ask, unless it's really specific, they'll delete it. They already have a Wikipedia page, like a wiki style thing, where it's like subjects and book recommendations.
Ask Historians
like
or Radio
literally-
Warner?
Ask Historians.
Oh, well then.
Here, I'll send it to you
Okay.
because they have, it's insane, the book list that they have. Like here, you'll be like, oh, well, this solved my problem. Dropping you a link now. So it's just literally like, click a subject, Americas, North America, Latin America. Click a section, and it's like, they just have, let's see, let's do a Taiwanese history. They've got Taiwan General, which is a subsection, pre-colonial, Dutch colony, and Japanese rule. But each one of those is its own subsection that has, under general, that's fucking It's like 50 books. It's like 100 books. It's a lot more. It's insane. Like, just have fun.
This
with
whole
that.
this whole thing is insane. It's okay. Have you actually oh, perfect. Perfect. Here we go. Nice. Age of Exploration. What do we got here? Oh, that's actually, hang on. Wait, that didn't work when I clicked on it. Age of Exploration. Why did that take me up?
Yeah, just scroll slightly down. It's Reddit's internal wiki functionality is, we'll say, limited.
Oh, I see. Okay. So if I go here and I click Age of Exploration, it jumps me down to...
It takes you to another page, which takes you to another page, and it's kind of tough that way.
Seem to just... Oh, it just has the Pirates book. That's why. That's unfortunate. Oh, here we go. Okay. No, it prioritizes the Pirates book for some reason, even though it's not the top one. So here we go. Book list, Age of Exploration. Ton of stuff. Okay. Age of Reconnaissance, Longitude. Is it Longitude or Longitude? Longitude, right?
Longitude.
There's a pirate section. Big pirate section.
You're looking at pirates?
I was looking at the Age of Exploration just as an example, but it had pirates just as the only point underneath it. But I click on it, and there's more primary sources. But it's then above there's like an actual whole thing here. Okay, there's stuff to work with.
Click on actual Age of Exploration, just not the subsection.
I did. It doesn't take me anywhere. It just takes me to
It
same
took me
thing.
there. I don't know what to do.
But wasn't loading at first. It's loading now. We're there now.
Oh.
Yeah. I would recommend books on the history of the kibbutz, just generally. That could be good, actually.
It's fairly interesting, yeah. I mean, again, it's fairly interesting.
It's also something that will be covered, though, if I go over, like, Benny Morris or whatever. So it's something I'll get.
I don't remember if Benny Morris goes heavy into it, because you're talking there, like, that's more interpersonal dramas and things. Benny Morris is going to, well, maybe.
No, Benny Morris goes into some detail early on in Righteous Victims. He specifically talks about, like, the culture of the early settlements.
Yeah, but
not like in depth. Like it's not a monograph
like the
on
forming
kibbutzes,
of the kibbutz, though. Not the forming of them, though, which is.
I think he does. I think it's like it's.
Well, I don't remember where I read about it because there's too many fucking books.
I think Righteous Victims does because he spends a lot of time on the structure of the early settlements. Again, it's not like a monograph. It's not like that's his primary focus. So it only goes so deep in, but it does talk about it. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna move on because I need to finish stream so I can do other things.
You do that.
But thank you very much. I think we populated this enough for a little bit. So.
Yay.
Hey. All right, talk later.
Last one. Sorry, last. Sorry, just real quick. There's a series by D. Van Nostrand Company called "The Government of." That's it. So, like, I have the fascist government of Italy and the government of Greater Germany. They were written contemporaneously in the 30s to describe how the governments were functioning, as if they were history books built for sort of people into that.
Oh, so it's sort of like it's like an Aristotelian kind of like collection of constitutions sort of thing.
Well, it's the king's government in Italy, in the technical sense, is composed of ministries of state under the prime minister, the head of government. The law of December 24, 1925, exalts the prime minister to a position above other ministers, etc., etc., etc. So it's just like literally how the fascist government of Italy operates, or the Nazi government of Germany, for example.
Interesting.
And it has like how laws are passed, how judges work, who's the judge, and again. As fascism goes, it just so happens that the Fuhrer is the ultimate judge. And hey, Mussolini too. Wow. What do you think of that? What are the odds? Coincidence, I promise. But it's that kind of thing. It really goes into like how all of it functions, like who reports to who. It's really fascinating. I really love it. That's all. It's my last note.
All right. Apparently Henry Near has books on the kibbutz, so I'll take a look at that as well. Thank you, QWQ. Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, Brooks. We'll chat later. Good luck on the thing. I hope I didn't fuck up your
Someday I
audio
will
too
finish
bad.
editing this. No, you're a terrible human being.
I'm a YouTuber. I have to be. It's my job.
That's fair. That's fair. You enjoy, and best of luck finding history books and stuffs.
Yeah, I think I'm done for today. I think I'm historied out for a good
Good for
24
you.
hours. All right. Ciao.
Bye-bye.
All right. Okay. Two things. We're gonna do a quick news thing, because I'm gonna roast this guy's ass for praising Trump's tent city policy here, because Jesus Christ, Tyler, that's stupid even for you. And then we're gonna move on to, does fantasy support monarchism or promote monarchism? Something like that. Okay, we're gonna do that. So, this is from NBC. Get into the deets here. Trump says he'll ban homeless camping, create quote-unquote tent cities. Trump proposed banning urban camping, arresting those who violate the ban, and offering them space in government-run tent cities staffed with doctors and social workers. It may not be what's making the headlines for former President Donald Trump's comeback bid, but Trump has put forward a slew of policy proposals in recent months as he looks to sell voters on his presidential bid, with his latest proposal focused on combating homelessness. His campaign has made a concerted effort to release more policy prescriptions and hold more smaller issue-focused events like the Education Roundtable he held in Iowa in March, on top of the traditional large-scale rallies that have become synonymous with his brand. This week, the former president put out a new platform on homelessness and added to his immigration proposals. In a video on homelessness, released by his campaign, Trump says that our first consideration should be the rights and safety of the hardworking, law-abiding citizens who make our society function. This is not going to be referring to homeless people. And Trump criticized many cities' policies on homelessness for making many suffer for the whims of a deeply unwell few. Central to his policy would be to ban urban camping and the creation of tent cities on inexpensive land, quote unquote, for homeless people that will be staffed with doctors and social workers. Put asterisks next to this. Put quotes around this. Do not bet money on this, to help people address systemic problems. That said, he also cast doubt on whether people would take him up on that offer, saying that many of them don't want that, but we will give them the option. What's the video? Trump homelessness plan.
Our once great cities have become unlivable, unsanitary nightmares, surrendered to the homeless, the drug addicted, and the violent and dangerously deranged. We're making many suffer for the whims of a...
Imagine looking like this. Looking like this. Having instigated an insurrection. And saying it's just...
deeply
it's unreal.
Unwell few, and they are unwell indeed. The homeless have no right to turn every park and sidewalk into a place for them to squat and do drugs. Americans should not have to step over piles of needles and waste as they...
The homeless, the real oppressor class.
walk down a street, a beautiful city, or at least once beautiful city, because they've changed so much over the last 10 years. Our first consideration...
I'm going to say this. If your city turns out hordes of people who are unequipped or untreated so that they are homeless, it is not a beautiful city. That is the opposite of a beautiful city. You are in a Kafkaesque nightmare.
Should be the rights and safety of the hardworking, law-abiding citizens who make our society function. When I'm back in the White House, we will use every tool, lever, and authority to get the homeless off our streets. We want to take care of them, but they have to be off our streets. There is nothing compassionate about letting these individuals live in filth and squalor rather than getting them the help that they need. We
In the wilderness, in a special camp, out of sight, out of mind.
need professionals to help them. For a small fraction of what we spend upon Ukraine, we could take care of every homeless veteran in America. Our veterans are being treated horribly.
He wants to put the veterans in a camp.
Likewise, with all of the money we will save by ending mass unskilled migration,
Homeless veterans, it's okay, we'll put them in a camp.
we will have a huge dividend to address this crisis in our own country.
Homeless people are just random people who appear out of nowhere. They spawn like rebels in civilization.
Under my strategy, working with states, we will ban urban camping wherever possible. Violators of these bans will be arrested, but they will be given the option to accept treatment and services if they're willing to be rehabilitated. Many of them don't
As opposed to what, Donald? What are you threatening them with if they don't?
want that, but we'll give them the option. We will then open up large parcels of inexpensive land, bring in doctors, psychiatrists, social workers,
Yeah, they're not going to do that.
and drug rehab specialists.
If they're not going to do that for the soldiers that are in service now, they're not going to do that for the homeless veterans. I am sorry.
And create 10 cities where the homeless can be relocated and their problems identified.
Brooks says, but this is not true. Brooks, you need to be more specific. I don't know which part you're referring to.
But we'll open up our cities again, make them livable, and make them beautiful. For those who are just temporarily down on their luck, we will work to help them quickly reintegrate into a normal life. For those who have addictions, substance abuse, and common mental health problems, we will get them into treatment. And for those who are severely mentally ill and deeply disturbed, we will bring them back to mental institutions where they belong, with the goal of reintegrating them back into society once they are well enough to manage. It's a tough task.
But how are you going to reintegrate them into society? You give them, you have no plan. You have no plan to. I'm sorry. We'll put them into an asylum. Yeah, we'll put them into it, and then magically they'll be productive McDonald's workers. Okay.
Very tough task. What's taken place on the streets, what's taken place with their taking so much drugs.
You turn it up a bit. It's super quiet. I don't know what the fuck's wrong with this website. My audio is like at max. I've got this boosted like by plus 10 dB.
The fact is, we're going to try. This strategy will be far better and also far less expensive than spending vast sums of taxpayer money to house the homeless in luxury hotels without addressing their underlying issues. And they have so many of these underlying issues and needs.
Okay, so what he's resentful about, or what the people he's speaking to are resentful about, what he's banking on is that you're resentful that homeless people are living in the lap of luxury. You are resentful that homeless people are living in the lap of luxury, when in fact what they need to do is to be put into a dirty plot of land in the swamp somewhere, where they can be treated like livestock, or put into an asylum where they can be chained down on a bed, out of sight, out of mind.
This is how I will
Everyone knows that the easiest way to life of ease in America is homelessness.
end the scourge of
That's
homelessness
where the real money is.
and make our cities clean and safe and beautiful once again. We will do it. We will bring back America.
This motherfucker. Look at this idiot. I'm struggling to imagine how stupid you'd have to be as someone who's like selling themselves as a leftist. 10 cities are unironically a good idea if executed correctly, and a plan like this puts Trump well ahead of a lot of Dems on homeless issues. He's talking like unfathomable stupidity. If he pulls this off correctly, it's going to cut the legs out from underneath a lot of moralizing Doolittle Dems. Didn't I tell you he's going to be a conservative by the end of the year? 100%. Oh, leaving aside the fact, by the way, you're also abandoning Ukraine. That's the premise of this. That is the premise of this. This is basically redirecting hatred of the homeless to provide justification for conceding to Russian imperialism. That's what it is. Wow, Tyler's a moron. Tyler's not just a moron. Tyler is a duplicitous moron. Tyler is an evil moron. He is a shill. He is a grifting leech. Yeah, Tyler, man of the working class, is pro Donald Trump rounding up homeless veterans and putting them into a camp. Why tension freezing cold? Because if they're in a solid building, then they're getting a free lunch. We hate that. We hate the idea of people getting something that we would have to work for. Wait, is it actually confirmed that he's pulling Ukraine support? It's in his language. He's specifically talking about the money that they're spending on Ukraine could be deployed for this. That's what Trump said. Is it confirmed he's pulling Ukraine support? He's been bouncing around on that for a while. He's been saying he's been opposed to Ukraine support. He's also been pro forcing a peace deal or encouraging a peace deal, but it will be a peace deal that Ukraine doesn't want to make because it's a peace deal that will involve accepting Russian gains. Yeah. He's a budgie pecking at a mirror, yeah. Just actual scumbag. But here. Angry call coming soon. Oh. Brooks is calling me again. Hey.
I have so much anger watching this video, dude, because it's like this is the challenge you have
Holy
with
shit,
anyone.
you're very loud. Hang on, let me fix this. Sorry, I had it boosted because of the video being so fucking quiet.
I didn't even touch anything on my side, so this one's not.
No, this was me. This was me. I boosted the audio because the website was.
How
super
can you
quiet.
have so many problems with such an audio setup?
I have a shit audio setup. I spent $300 on this thing.
There you go. Is that any better?
Yes.
Literally everything he says is this extraordinary lie. The money spent on Ukraine isn't really money spent on Ukraine.
Yeah.
Because it's not money that's like coming out of somewhere. It's
arms.
Like it's arms that's being sold via voucher system. Like there is budget put towards it, but that money, like again, because people are really kind of dumb. They think that like the U.S. government works like a household where you have like, oh, look, we have $4,000 coming in every month. We don't have to pay for that. We have extra money here.
I think Biden's handing Zelensky a check, which Zelensky is then taking to a store.
But they also think that when we don't have Ukraine, that we still have that line item for that money, and that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Like the money still has to be allocated and appropriated. It's not like we just have money that goes from here to there. It's certainly not at that level. The other things he says where he's like, oh, it's through deporting illegal immigrants, which, by the way, that's another thing he says here. So that's leftist. But it's also not true. The amount of money we'll save by deporting all of these people is like, that's the opposite of how that works. It's going to cost us a fortune, one, to do it, but two, all of the tax revenue, and it's a lot, by the way, the illegal immigrants put in, Social Security they put in, everything, local and national, all that goes away. All the sales tax goes away because it's not like they're like in a black market 100% of the time and never touch. They touch all the systems.
No, illegal immigrants literally live like Aladdin. Okay, they all just steal bread and hide in alcoves. That's where they are.
But on top of it, when we don't have them, and you can go look at Florida for the last few years, go look at all the reports of how they just cannot find enough people to do the work, no matter what they pay. And there's fruit rotting on the ground all over the place in Florida because they can't fucking find people to do the work. Because it turns out, by the way, that most of these industries in our economy is founded on like basically slave labor. It's amazing. America founded on slave labor in the South. Who heard of that? So our agriculture industry is going to collapse when he does this. But there's no money being saved anywhere. Like that's not how. There's no budgetary. There's no economic person who backs this. It's an insane comment. So like that's the point where I was like, it's literally everything he's saying is just an extraordinary lie. I can send you, there's a handful of studies that were done on tent cities following the 2008 collapse, like around 2012 to 2015, because there was a lot of homelessness. It's been exacerbated drastically. But basically what they found is that there's only really one kind of homeless encampment that works to allow people to get back on their feet. And if it's tents, which is possible, it has to be a self-governed small group that has full financial support from the outside for a handful of things, including security. And so you have to allow them self-governance. There's reasons for all of this, but what he specifically is doing, and it's the cheap land.
He's talking about a concentration camp for poor people. You're talking about his.
I'm talking about a
super low budget, like, neighborhood is what you're talking about.
It's like literal tent cities in Portland. I'm outside of Portland. They're in a lot of cities, but they also they come from one thing, and it's like literally one thing. And it's a question of if you're going to attack the Band-Aid and the like end point where it's like, oh, well, look at all these people who are here. They must want to be here, and then ship them off to the countryside where there's no work, no chance to get on their feet, and drugs are rampant. That's fantastic. Good job. There's certainly no one in the sticks or in the countryside
where
who
you're
has
just throwing money at essentially a prison population out in the wild.
Yes, and then mostly because, and it's again how he says it, it's to make sure that land value continues to rise. He is a real estate piece of shit. What do you like? This is 100% why he's doing it and what he cares about. So it's this extraordinary lie across the board that it's basically going to ship people outside into more or less concentration camps for the poor. And there's no fixing it. There's not like a big budget for new home building. There's not, tax breaks for new first-time home buyers. None of that shit. He wants renters. He wants rich people who own the land to rent to the rest of us. And that's what he's excited for. And if we can't, we need to get out, because then basically where we end up is we end up on this tiny weird government dole, probably eating, rations out somewhere at best. And we're least far away. And it's an insane thing. It's an insane thing for anyone to say that this puts them ahead of anything. Like anyone who's
by the way, when he says luxury motels, just hotels, just so you know, the luxury hotels that he's referring to are like boxes. These are not, homeless people are not being sent to a hotel with like a luxury shower and a TV and room service. These are like motels.
This is not an issue that you can work with emotionally. Anyone who's worked the unhoused, and I can send you the study from Yale. I can send you from, I think I have one somewhere from the National Coalition for the Homeless that did a wonderful sort of study on what it means to actually live in these and how people get out of it across the entire country. Like they did, it's like, I think 50 to 100 various camps and various demographics. And the difficulty is, and they even talk about this, you can't be emotional about it because people will go, oh, you want guards. That means that they're prisoners. No, because people need to be able to have their stuff secure when they go to work. Like that's what house is. House is
from
security.
Each other too, when you're in a very low income neighborhood, which this would definitionally be. Yeah.
It'd be an enforced one. So, but those guards have to be specifically trained. This is again the fine line. They have to be trained not to be abusive and not to treat these people like shit, which has happened. And they have studies and examples of this. You have to be very careful about how they're seen. That they're seen as enablers, which means you have to generally get security guards who actually have social work background, which is we'll just say limited.
They're not gonna do that. That's a lie. That's a flat out lie. Like forget like everything else. Like he's talking about, we're gonna get the psychologists and we're gonna get them. So like no, none of these things are going to happen. It's gonna be cops. It's gonna be C grade.
Yep.
Cops who are unfit.
It's gonna be the people who can't get jobs as cops
and resent where they're working, and they're gonna hate the people there. And you're gonna see a whole lot of, if any of this materializes, you're gonna see a whole lot of if they turn them on, body cam footage of people getting brutalized. That's what's going to happen in a sty in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, it's kind of extraordinary, actually.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating. Again, I'm not as much of a doomer about Trump's presidency as I think a lot of people, and I understand why people are. I'm not diminishing that. You should be scared, and I am worried. But I currently am in a place where I'm more astonished at the weird cope side of, well, Harris lost, so let's make do with this guy mentality that I'm seeing from more and more on this odd place where it's like, well, he's got the power, so maybe we can. And it's
No,
like,
the optimism
no.
you have is based upon the capital limitations of reality will resist the crazier stuff that he says he wants to do. And
I do believe that at the base level of everything is capital driving all of this, and I don't believe that he is he's insane. I believe he is a liar con artist, but I believe he is primarily those things and driven by capital. And I think that we're lucky in a sense that he isn't a hyper ideologue Nazi like a few of the other people in his space. He is primarily driven by capital. So things that he would do that would actually literally derail the entire country puts us in a place where he's no longer rich and he can't be rich. And that's not what he and his people want. So I think there's a struggle there that is going to be very horrifying to watch, and that we are the victims of.
I have a little bit of optimism that a lame duck Trump, or at the very least a significantly but not catastrophically, to the extent that this is possible, Trump inoculates us in Canada a little bit, because we are very much downstream from what's happening in the United States, and we've got a year until our own election, and our prime minister, our potential prime minister in 2025 will fuck things up hard.
Well, it's actually my bigger worry is I think we have an opportunity here in the States in a unique way because of the complete collapse of the Democratic Party following this and the power structures. I think there's an opportunity locally and nationally for a different type of organization. I really do. And I think that Trump is going to be limited in some ways by capital. The scarier thing for me is actually what happens in 2028. I think 2026 is an opportunity to pull back, but 2028 is the moment where it's end of the world stuff, because we are going to, whatever Trump does here, which is going to be bad enough, what he will inspire in right-wing groups around the world is actually more horrifying.
We're gonna start seeing epic amounts of climate refugees as well. It's going to accelerate a lot.
Oh, it's going to be drastic, and it's the kind of thing where I have friends who are like, "Well, God, where do we move?" And I'm like, "Where the fuck do you move? Like name a place in the world. Are you going to go to Europe? How soon do you think there are going to be how many Palestinian refugees, or how many Lebanese refugees, or how many refugees from just climate itself in literally the next 4 years that are going to take over and overwhelm a system that is not only not prepared but fighting the idea of
you have entire countries that are powers on the map right now that will be basically uninhabitable outdoors.
Yeah, and we're talking
like an oven.
And we have a very, very stupid mentality in our governments where it's, well, we'll just stop them. And it's like, that's not how it works. Like, that's not how people operate. And it's just not, it's not a thing. And so I'm more worried the rest of the world and then how that falls back on. I think there's opportunities. I really do. And I have to, because if there's not opportunities, this is the end of things for maybe the rest of my lifetime. And that's terrifying to me. So it's kind of a necessity, I think, for us to make those moves and to do things smarter without cozying up to the fascising side of things. Because actual leftist messaging, whatever we think about any of this, the attraction for people to fascism exists in a dual mode. There is within the Trump world, there is a burn everything down. It's not a punk mentality. They want it to be, but they do have a anti-government, anti-establishment thing. And Doug Stanhope put out a great stand-up the other night where he went, it's this really fucked up thing that people I've known all my life who are anti-government are now trying to get the government out of their life. And this fucked up place that we're in where people are that far gone that they're anti-establishment while voting for clearly the capitalist establishment. And this thing, there's a multitude of things inside of that there is room for us to find something to hook onto and play with without having to pretend like we're fascists or strongmen.
Yeah.
But this shit is
There's a
this shit is awful.
Yeah.
And again, whether or not he does it, this is the other half, and it's an important thing to remember. And
Mhm.
I mean this. The last election, everyone was like, what the fuck is he going to do? Because he had insane promises. And it turned out that he's a con man. And we know this. And that he did just enough wall to do a photo op. He did just enough this to do a photo op. He did just enough this to say he did it. And over and over and over without doing the big giant thing. And he kept doing this. And it's kind of all he's ever done. That's how he's always done real estate. He does just enough to do the photo op and to make money. He does just enough of the thing. So the thing that's really in there that's important for us is to, one, be aware of what he's doing, be aware of the actual conditions of where it's happening, and be aware of what our powers are in terms of capability of pushing back against it. Sorry for the rant. It's
No,
just,
it's
this
okay.
is like,
And by the way, Tyler, because I know you're watching this, this kind of attempting to get points with the Republican people, it's not gonna serve you well. Just so you know, that's as a kindness. That is the death knell of your position here. It's a loss of your identity, whatever is left of that already. This is a little strategic mistake. Don't do that. I know you're cynical. Don't do that. Bad idea. It's not going to help you.
no, there are, and again, I posted them in the Cathedral. There's two studies that go through how tent cities have operated, and it goes through literally distance from population, demographic makeup, how long they were there, were they funded by who, were they allowed by X? Like it goes through all the different parts, like data wise, of like, here's how tent cities existed in tons of places, and it's actually really fascinating. I think it's fascinating because it talks to, like, just flipping through, it's Duncan Plaza Tent City began in July 2007, 2 years after Hurricane Katrina. The tent city grew out a confluence of factors, including return of New Orleans residents to a city amongst a vast housing or shortage. No shit. And it just goes through and like talks through the organizations that helped funded, who oversaw it, the kind of people that worked there. And it's actually kind of, each story is really fascinating, and you start getting a picture of how people end up here, how they find their way out of it. And it's one of those things that I'm fortunate in the sense that no matter what fight my parents and I have a home to go to.
Mhm.
Like, my parents are not going to lose their house. I'm lucky to have that boomer parent thing that no matter what happens, I could never find work again, and I lose my house, I get evicted, and I'm in my Jeep with my kids and a handful of things with my wife, and we just drive straight to my parents' house. I've got that safety net. And that thing has prevented me from having an excessive amount of stress. And I think a lot of people here who are listening know what I'm talking about. If you don't have that safety net, it is a horrifying nightmare. I have a friend who was in that position. And when you don't have a ripcord to pull, there's just nothing left. That's how you end up. And it doesn't take a lot for someone to be there.
No.
It really
If
doesn't.
if I didn't, it would take this. Like suppose trying to think of an example. Like anything could happen where my partner loses a job, revenue tanks for whatever reason. And now all of a sudden, okay, what do we got in savings? $20,000? Okay. That goes really fast. That's a few months. Oh, no one's hiring, because that's a thing. What do you do? And let's add some other things in this. Let's say you're drug addicted, so a massive amount of your income is going towards that. You don't have the wherewithal or the resources to get off the drugs. So that's money still pouring in that way. You're losing time, losing energy. You're not functioning as well. Like there are so many. It's bad.
A 2 cheeseburger meal with fries and soda has been my entire life $6 until the last few years,
No,
and
it's
it is
20.
crossing the
20, 30.
it's $12.77, and that's more than the minimum wage in most areas. And when you think about like the way that this tracks, where the minimum wage in a lot of places actually is the same price as a bag of Doritos. How is a person working 40, 50, 60 hours a week intended to not end up homeless? And once you're homeless, you end up in that spiral. It's an awful one where you don't smell good because you don't have anywhere to shower. And you also are terrified because you kind of have to worry about your shit every night because people beat you, they kick you, they steal your shit. You might lose something because you forget it on a table somewhere and then you've lost it forever. You have to have a phone, but you need a place to charge it, but people won't let you in because you stink in different places. So you need to find a shower, which is usually the Y, or the bathroom at a library.
I mean, it was the Y. Have you been to a YMCA recently? There are for-profit institutions that are insanely expensive. Our local one is begging the local council for $10 million to keep it afloat, while they are charging $15 for people to drop in and swim because they only want to cater to the upper middle class residents of our area. It's disgusting. It's parasitic.
Yeah,
like it's yeah.
And it's only going to get worse because with Trump in there, we're going to see, and it's one of those things that's going to be great for the first year, and I do mean that financially, generally speaking. Trump is going to make sure that they drop interest rates so that way loans can be made again to the wealthy, because that's the people who have money don't have money. That's liquidity. In order to have liquidity, people take loans out against their stock or against hard assets that they do not have the ability to immediately sell. It's illiquid assets. And they take that money, and that money they use to buy other assets, which then they take loans out against in order to sort of further increase. This is basically how everyone did everything during the big run of I want to say 2015 through 2020 up to COVID. This is kind of how everything worked. There was a huge games company, small company out of Sweden that ended up having a bunch of fucking money, that they bought a ton of games companies and publishers. They bought Dark Horse Comics and board game companies, and they bought Lord of the Rings and just insane shit. And then it turned out they didn't even consider we actually aren't making any profits. And they had to lay off, I think it was multiple times a third of their staff. I think it ended up being globally 80% of their workforce just gone, and companies gone, and work gone. And this happened across the board. Meta primarily, and Twitter before it was X, all these companies, you take loans against your you take loans to expand. And when there's no more loans, it means you can't get new loans to pay off old ones based on larger valuations, which means you have to pay back, which means you have to fire a fuck ton of people, 30, 40, 50,000 people. So again, the first year of Trump's presidency is going to have an influx of capital. And so it's the first thing I recommend for everyone is to be watching now, and do not think twice about how you can find a way to make cash off of it. Be very careful, but watch, because this is going to be a year of weird, crazy, fucked up spending and investing and all kinds of shit, followed by what is, I'm going to presume, a significant depression. And it's going to be, it's actually terrifying to me how that's going to go, because we're going to have basically total deregulation around business, crypto, and a bunch of other things. And that mixed with low interest rates is going to just be a frenzy of spending that's going to feel amazing. It's going to be genuinely arousing. And then it's going to be awful. Sorry, I've been thinking a lot about actually what his policies were the first time around and how they map this and the timing of things, and this is going to be, it's going to be wild. And I mean, we're already going to have trouble, even if he doesn't do the deportation, fully. I think he'll do some notice, but it's going to be a really complex thing. It's going to be really weird. If he doesn't do it, doesn't matter. The threat alone is already causing a big surge of people on the southern border trying to get out. If you haven't read about it, it's actually really there's a big problem. People trying to leave or sneak out, get the fuck out of the country because they don't want to be deported. You get deported, then you're marked as not allowed back in, or there's a suspension or 5-year limit or whatever it is. And they don't want that. So they want to get out so that way they can sneak back in after the deportation or come back in afterwards. So it's this really, we're already going to see problems in the ag sector and inside of a bunch of different sectors who are dependent heavily on that for their low prices. Sorry, I'm just rambling now. But
no, it's okay. It's okay. All right, I'm going to finish this thing. By the way, quick announcement, chat. The book club is on currently. They are talking about I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. So if that interests you, go into the server. There's a link in the description, and go down to the book club VC.
It should interest you. It's Harlan Ellison.
Yes, it's very
Harlan Ellison.
Very good, very disturbing in the best and worst ways. Very, very worth it. Go check that out. I may pop in later, depending on when stream ends. But that's in the server. So go in the description, follow the link, join the Cathedral. Thank you, Brooks.
Always fun.
Uh-huh.
I know. Fuck, dude. But again, just before Capital, do we believe that Capital runs things? I do. I just flat out do. I don't believe in ideology. I believe in the production of the unconscious. I believe this is how people are affected, and I've seen it in people. And so for me, the horrors of this is where we're going to see these things come together. And it's going to be a really awful social experiment at large for everybody. And it's just a nightmare. I'm going to go. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Take it easy. We'll chat later.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Let's do something not soul-destroying for a few minutes. Or it might be. You never know. You never know. We'll see, though. Okay? Hang on. Let's do... Does fantasy promote monarchism? I am intrigued. How bad is this going to be? This is on a channel called Philosophizing Fiction. Tiny channel. I like channels like this. This is a tiny. So this is does fantasy promote monarchism? This is from 1 month ago. 7,000 views. Not bad. Philosophizing Fiction. Let's make this bigger. Let's take a look at this. Is fantasy monarchist propaganda? Maybe it's anti-monarchist. Why do fantasy worlds have monarchies? Why aren't there more democracies in fantasy? These questions have been asked before and will be asked again. What are the answers? Watch and find out. Okay. Let's take a look.
I can't think of any major fantasy world that has a democracy.
Okay. What's the government structure of the Shire? Hang on. Because, like, the Shire's basically... It's basically like an anarchist commune, almost, isn't it? Old Wag's Journal and Civilization. The Moral Economy of the Shire. What is this? There's a certain meme that I see making the rounds on Facebook every so often about the bucolic. The hell does that mean? Relating to the pleasant aspects of the countryside and country life.
Bucolic.
Bucolic, okay. But the bucolic nature of life in the Shire. From Tolkien's Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Makes you start thinking, are there taxes in the Shire? If not, how does the government function? Are there worries? Does the lack of taxes relate to the lack of worries? How do people think a whole economic system is built around drinking and pipe smoking even works? Luckily, I think there are answers to this. Tolkien does not describe the political economy of the Hobbits in any detail, but it's rarely relevant to the story, but I think we can learn a lot about it from what he does mention. In Tolkien's Legendarium, the Shire is built on an idealized version of rural English society. The Shire at the time had hardly any government, quote-unquote. Families, for the most part, managed their own affairs. Growing food and eating it occupied most of their time. In other words, they were, as a rule, generous and not greedy, but content and moderate, so that estates, farms, workshops, and small trades tended to remain unchanged for generations. Legally speaking, the Shire took the form of a royal grant from King Argelib II to the brothers Marco and Blancho in 1601 TA. Third Age, granting their people the right to settle the lands between Brandywine River and the Far Downs, in return for which they were to maintain the bridges and roads, aid the king's couriers, and acknowledge him as liege lord. After the downfall of the kingdom of Arnor, the hobbits chose to maintain this legal continuity by establishing the office of Thane, a hereditary chieftainship who could take the place of the absent monarch. This office originally belonged to the Old Buck family, but some centuries prior to the events of The Lord of the Rings had passed to the Tooks. The Thane was the nominal head of state for the Shire and had the authority to summon the moot and muster in times of emergency, but this was mostly ceremonial given the lack of emergencies. So it's... The implication in both the books and movies is that most hobbits spent their time either farming or enjoying leisure time, but this makes little sense when one considers what we know about pre-modern agriculture and what little of life and culture in the Shire. This could describe a pure subsistence economy based around producing just enough food to ensure survival, and some of the text seems to suggest that. But it's clear that can't be true. The Shire has a well-developed economy with mills, full-time craftsmen, inns, and the large-scale cultivation of luxury crops, despite having almost no foreign trade. South farming pipeweed being found as far away as Isengard is taken as proof of Saruman's meddling. Or industry. Pre-modern agriculture was characterized primarily as being low surplus and high labor. It takes a lot of people a lot of time to produce enough food for everyone to eat, and there's rarely much left over. How does this jibe with the leisurely lives of simple pleasure that the hobbits seem to enjoy? There's a very obvious answer, which is that our protagonists aren't typical hobbits. Bilbo, Frodo, Merry, and Pippin are all very clearly members of the landed gentry. The landowning class that controls most means of economic production and maintains social dominance over the Shire. This isn't extrapolation or interpretation, it's more or less text, and I suspect the only reason it's not spelled out is because Tolkien assumed any reader would understand that intuitively. Bilbo and Frodo are both gentlemen of leisure because the Baggins family is independently wealthy, and that wealth almost has to come from land ownership because there isn't enough industry or trade to sustain it. I don't think it's actually implied, though. Is it said specifically that Bilbo owns farms? I think he just owns Bag End. It's just a house. They can afford to go on adventures and study elven poetry because they draw their income from tenant farmers renting their land. Merry and Pippin are even from an even higher social tier. Both are the heirs to the powerful families that hold quasi-feudal offices, the Master of Buckland for the Brandybucks and the Thane for the Tooks. As I said before, this is the traditional system of social organization in the English countryside, sometimes known as squirearchy. The gentry in this paradigm aren't nobility. They don't have a distinct set of legal privileges. Serfdom or other forms of labor bound to the land doesn't seem to exist, and there's no evidence of military vassalage as an organizing principle. Okay. That's interesting. All right, let's press on with this.
I'm sure they exist, but let's cover some of the major fantasy.
Nice material. Thank you for the membership. And I should actually reconfigure the audio again. Okay, good. And Lakeside Miners for the TLRs. Furries make the world work. That has not been my experience.
Two worlds. As far as I'm aware, Sanderson's Cosmere doesn't have any democratic elements. Tolkien's Middle-earth is dominated by warring kingdoms, not republics, and last I checked, Martin's Westeros has nothing but bitter noble houses vying for power. Okay, maybe books are a bad example, only nerds read those anyway. In the world of fantasy gaming, Tamriel has 0 democracies. Zelda's universe has the Kingdom of Hyrule, not the Republic of Hyrule. Oh, but Dishonored sees Corvo saving Emily so she can install a Nope, she rules.
Star Wars has a democratic monarchy.
Rules as Empress. Yeah, things aren't looking too good. Alright, enough beating around the bush. Is it true that fantasy games and books promote monarchism? After all, most of the worlds I mentioned paint monarchy in a positive light. There's a benevolent king or queen who will solve all of the problems. Even Game of Thrones' solution for monarchy is just more monarchy. At least in the TV show, the books haven't ended just yet. Why don't more fantasy worlds have non-monarchical governments? How does fantasy promote monarchism if it does at all? And what's the big deal with monarchism? And is there any anti-monarchism in fantasy? Let's dive in.
I think it's a mistake to treat the use of monarchies as a political form, as if it is an endorsement of that political form outside of it. Obviously, it can appear idealized in the sense of, like, there is the possibility of a good outcome under a monarchy in Lord of the Rings, say. There's not really a good outcome in Game of Thrones. But that doesn't entail that an endorsement of monarchy in the real world. I think what's more interesting is what are the possible sites for bad things, and what are the ways in which those bad things are made to occur? So, for example, it's not necessarily an endorsement of an anarchist society to have an anarchist society as the positive state of affairs that is destroyed in the narrative by some invading army or something. But it would be a positive endorsement of an anarchist society to demonstrate a spontaneous social order having more robustness and resiliency than one that is imposed from the top down, right? Like that would be an example. That would be something that promotes an anarchist principle that makes anarchism more intelligible and make more sense to like a newcomer to anarchist thought than if you simply put, and this is an anarchist system, because that doesn't do anything by itself.
Where have all the democracies gone in fantasy? Fantasy is often set in the medieval times, and that could be why, but historical reasons may not be that significant. While democracies were rare, they weren't really unheard of in the Middle Ages. I mean, even before medieval period, there were democracies. Athens is one of the most famous democracies in history. The Roman Republic, okay, it wasn't really that democratic, but it wasn't really a medieval monarchy either. Italian city-states such as Venice had legislative assemblies, and Switzerland also has a history of relatively democratic politics. Of course, most republics in the Middle Ages weren't like modern-day democracies. You weren't electing a president, assuming you even had the right to vote at all. No, you were electing an oligarch more often than not. Granted, that oligarch had limited authority, but some ruled for life, and once elected, they had a lot of power. Despite the fascinating and frankly complicated politics of the Middle Ages, a lot of fantasy worlds reduce it to complicated bickering between nobles.
Monarchy in most of these fantasies are philosopher kings that are de facto democratically allowed, if not encouraged, to rule. The intent of the writer is rarely monarchical in real political terms. I think a good example would be, like we were talking about in a recent upload, we were talking about the infamous George R. R. Martin questions, like what was Aragorn's tax policy, like that kind of thing. And it's an interesting question actually, because if you presume a modern understanding of how rule works and how administration works, even the idea of administration is a necessary component of rule by itself, that seems like a question that would be really pertinent, because it's like, how do you say someone rules wisely and well if you don't actually depict or explain how they reconcile with the real material issues of ruling? How do you just say that, oh, it was fine because he was a virtuous man, when you have to do unvirtuous things under modern conditions in order to make a state function? And the answer to that is that he wasn't making a state function. The answer to that is like the way this society worked is it was largely autonomous. It was largely operating according to anarchist principles. It was simply arranged according to monarchist principles in terms of its formal structure. Similar like with how the Shire appears, I suppose, because you never get the impression that there's a labor class that doesn't have homes, either from the movies or from the books. That's just not depicted. Now, it's distinctly possible that's the case, or by implication that must be the case, because maybe Tolkien was just not thinking about that. But like that, the difference though is between endorsing that state of affairs or naively thinking that that state of affairs would not be necessitated. Something like that. If you show something being necessitated that is anti-democratic, say, or is anti-socialist or anti-anarchist or pro-monarchist, then that would be something. Like, for example, if it is a consistent feature of your story that people who are not kept in check by top-down rule or by the omnipresence of guards or walls or whatnot, then you might come away from that story with an image in your head of the absence of these things being insanity. That would be a promotion of anti-anarchist principles, say. If you have the opposite going on, wherein walls and police, etc., are shown to be causes of disorder, which they frequently are, that would and whereas like robust social networks, eyes on the street, people who know each other, people who work with each other, have mutual loyalties of being in the same of like class, kinship, belonging to a common locality, having a common investment in the same material features of their environment, whether that's the environment itself for religious or cultural reasons, or just because they work together. They all work at the same place. They have that thing in common. If that becomes the basis of greater security, especially if you have these two things opposed to each other, which happens frequently, especially because colonial rule is a frequent trope in a lot of fantasy, that would actually support an anarchist principle, even though you have the omnipresence of monarchies and so on and so forth. It can even be taking place under a monarchist setting, because we actually haven't had a monarchist state. So it's not actually necessary for there to be an anarchist state. Did I say monarchist state? We haven't actually had an anarchist state at all. I mean, it's a contradiction in terms. We haven't had a region that actually adhered to anarchist principles, really, because they weren't able to. So obviously, anarchist thought and anarchist principles don't require that to exist. And the principles that we're locating that support anarchism are going to be found in practice in smaller like villages and neighborhoods and things like that. They come from there. So I think to assume that because there aren't instantiations of democratic societies in fantasy, that does not mean that fantasy promotes its opposite. I think that's a mistake. I don't think that's what this guy's going to say, though. I'm sort of liking the tone of this so far. Hopefully he doesn't disappoint me, but this is actually looking... I'm going to subscribe to this tentatively. This is actually looking hopeful.
Most of Game of Thrones is about nobility. Yes, there are soldiers and knights, clergy, commoners, etc., who all have important roles in the world, but at the end of the day, the point of the story is in the title. It's the Game of Thrones, not the Game of Congressional Seats. I honestly couldn't say why democratic elements are rarely explored in political fantasy stories. I get why Tolkien went with monarchy. His world is explicitly romanticizing the past and is a battle between light and dark. It wouldn't make as much sense if it was the Republic of Mordor.
I don't think he's romanticizing monarchy. I think monarchy is appropriate to the setting that he wanted, but I don't think he's aggrandizing monarchy as such. In fact, generally the principle seems to be that ruling well is ruling very little. In fact, he parodies over-administration. Parody is probably the wrong word. He satirizes it, I think I would say, in The Scouring of the Shire at the end of Return of the King, where fundamentally you have rigid top-down administration. And people can live there. The Shire works. The Shire is a society that works. Sharky's Shire works. Okay? But it's miserable. I think that's the important thing. It's like... Why is tragedy more educational than comedy? Because it conditions your emotions. It like you see the products of hubris. You see loss. You see like et cetera, like things of weight and cost, and it conditions you to approach those things in your life differently. It's like that. Sharky ruled wisely and well from a certain point of view. True.
Mordor versus the free state of Gondor or something. It's a tragic tale of war between spiritual beings and humanity. The spiritual fall of Melkor and Sauron.
But it was both, though. It was both, because Gondor well-functioning is a Gondor where people are left alone. A Gondor well-functioning is a Gondor that resembles the Shire. Mordor, by contrast, deals with alienated, uprooted humanoids who are essentially reduced to a mobile laboring class, to be driven by their appetites, to do work that serves their own enslavement. Orcs. Talking about orcs, okay? That is the extreme version of workers under capitalism. That's what that's depicting. It's depicting workers under top-down administration, where bottom-up community is evacuated of all substance, and you just have the order imposed from without. So I think that's wrong. I don't think it's the case that Lord of the Rings valorizes monarchism at all, or top-down rule. I think it's just that monarchism is the formal structure, but you have to look beyond the formal structure, because you can have a democracy that operates in exactly the same way. Arguably, we live in them.
Sauron's involvement would lose a lot of meaning if they were just senators or something. The Powder Mage is one of the few major fantasy series that actually has more than bickering nobles. It begins with a coup against the monarchy and weaves a plot of intrigue, bloodshed, and how to build democracy. And like all democracies, it has a revolutionary war. But it is a stretch to call it medieval fantasy. Fantasy, yeah, absolutely, it has magic and whatnot, gun magic of all things. But medieval fantasy, no. And it's still not like the Powder Mage paints the Republic in a nice light. I mean, the kingdom was horrible, but... Anyway, I'm sure there are other books with similar settings.
Also, democracy's not nice. Democracy supplies some of the conditions of freedom. Democracy is not therefore a democracy, is not therefore good. That's important. Democracy not categorically good. Democracy is a tool. Democracy is a form of social organization and rule that gives less power than other forms to members of a particular class or family. But it doesn't evacuate all of their power, it doesn't evacuate all of their advantage, and it certainly doesn't mean that the decisions of the collective will be good or will be positive towards other people like them.
Or, they might take place in a merchant republic or something, but most games I can think of, not really. I mean, I don't know much about Final Fantasy, but most RPGs are set in a kingdom. I can tell you that much. I mean, every Elder Scrolls entry, Dragon Age...
Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII are capitalist nationalist settings, actually.
Baldur's Gate, all of them set in
Final Fantasy VI is more of an environmental thing.
monarchies. Pillars of Eternity has the Valiant Republics and is basically
Pillars of Eternity is derivative nonsense, and I hate it. Pillars of Eternity is incredibly boring. It's badly written. It's awful. Pillars of Eternity is a bad game.
a mix of the Italian city-states mentioned earlier, so maybe there are other games with fantasy republics, but once again, I'm at a loss. So now we're left with a question. Does fantasy actually promote monarchism? I mean, sure, a lot of fantasy worlds have monarchies, but that doesn't mean they
A lot of them do. I would say Game of Thrones does, easily. Game of Thrones does. Game of Thrones treats the common people as a violent rabble that must be controlled by strong institutions and a stern, cold hand. That's Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones absolutely promotes any type of top-down rule. It promotes monarchy, arguably through a lens of capitalist realism. Someone put it recently, which I liked. Game of Thrones is terrible for that. And I would say probably Brandon Sanderson goes in the same direction.
Oats monarchism. Let's do a few case studies and find out.
Okay.
Time to talk about Middle Earth. Does Middle Earth promote monarchism? Galadriel in both the films and the books is portrayed as a good person. But wait, there is lore beyond Lord of the Rings. She was also a rebel and supported Fëanor, later fleeing Aman and rebelling against the Valar. Perhaps she had more personal ambitions? Still, it seems like she had mostly good intentions, which can't be said for other rulers that we'll talk about. Aragorn too is a noble guy. He has a strong sense of right and wrong, fights for what he loves, and accepts the end of his life with grace and dignity. Boromir had to make a heroic sacrifice as penance for giving into the temptation of the ring. I got the feeling that Aragorn had nothing to apologize for in his life. So clearly Tolkien saw kings and queens as noble, honest rulers, right? Well, not quite. You may get the impression from the movies that other than Theoden, and even he gets a second chance, that most kings and nobility are good guys at heart. But the books, and especially the other texts Tolkien wrote, such as the letters and his whole legendarium as a whole, tell a very different story. Some of the Elven lords are basically the biggest jerks on Middle Earth, even when they aren't under any temptation. They're just too proud. Not proud in a stuck-up arrogant way, but a sort of I can do this and nobody can stop me sort of way. It's the sort of pride that leads to tragic tales. That rebellion I mentioned? Yeah, they rebelled against the Valar to get revenge against Melkor, the bad guy. It's that kind of pride. And pride, last I checked, is still one of the 7 deadly sins. There's also a letter where Tolkien said that he liked anarchy, but also unconstitutional monarchy? What did he mean by this? In the gaming world, the Kingdom of Hyrule is ruled by usually okay kings unless they're overthrown or influenced by evil. Of course, Zelda is often the wielder of the Triforce of Wisdom and is a noble girl. I mean, come on, there isn't a single bad bone in her body. At the same time, however, there isn't really much to suggest that they're advocating for monarchism. If anything, the fact that some kings get corrupted or overthrown and it requires Link, who is rarely, if ever, nobility to save the world, suggests that the series isn't monarchist at all. Maybe it's even anti-monarchist. I mean, Link is a farmer in Twilight Princess. You don't get lower than farming on the medieval totem pole.
That doesn't mean it has any statement to make on anarchism. That just means it's using someone who's like, that doesn't make any sense.
Speaking of anti-monarchism, we have Westeros, and if you're familiar with Game of Thrones, I don't have to explain much. I can't think of many decent people in
There's not a lot of time left. You only got 3 minutes to make your point.
Series at all, but the overwhelming majority of nobility are corrupt, violent, callous, greedy, or just plain mean. That being said, I don't know if I would go as far as to say that Westeros is anti-monarchist. Actually, nothing I mentioned so far is. Most of the fiction...
No, because Game of Thrones depicts cruelty and rule and oppression as a necessary element of peace and prosperity. That's the problem. that's why Game of Thrones is not anti-monarchist at all. That's it. Now, I don't know what George R. R. Martin was intending to do with the later books. Maybe he would undermine that somehow, but I don't think we'll ever know because he's never going to write them.
Fictional worlds brought up so far deal with character, not government. The nobles of Westeros aren't corrupt because they're nobility, they're corrupted because they're human, and we all have shortcomings. In Westeros, it isn't that monarchy is flawed or produces flawed individuals, it's that the desire for power is a flaw of individuals. Sure, a lot of RPGs and D&D campaigns have good kings and...
But are the flaws themselves cast as flaws because they frustrate a monarchical system? Or because they frustrate a system that presumes capitalist relations of control and administration? Because if that's the case, then it is pro those things. That's what that means.
Suggest a sort of monarchism, but how many people leave a gaming table...
Farmer isn't at the bottom of the poll, and Zelda it is. There's no poor people in Zelda. Except for that one guy who you trade a bean to get a fish from.
Put down a book and think, gee, it would be great to have a king running around right now. I can't wait to go back to feudalism. Fantasy books, games, and movies aren't inherently monarchist any more than they are inherently democratic. Let's rewind back to Tolkien. Tolkien himself had personal beliefs about monarchy and strong leadership, but consider the Shire for a second. It's not like the place is run by nobles. There isn't a royal house of...
But it is. It is run by nobles. The reason why it looks idyllic is because Tolkien basically ignored the labor requirements of such a society in his depiction. But he didn't ignore the fact that Bilbo is rich. Bilbo is rich. Frodo is the heir to Bilbo. Frodo is rich. Samwise is buddies with the rich kid. Pippin and Merry are nobles, essentially. It's not the Shire.
The Shire. Even the books don't really describe it as having a strong sense of government and leadership. And even when we are dealing with kings...
That's because if you're in the leisure class, you don't deal with government and leadership to that extent. Yeah, Samwise is the servant of the rich kid. Yeah, he's a servant and friend of the rich kid. Those are possibilities. It's rare possibilities, but it can happen. It's like a similar relationship that I really liked. Kingdom on Netflix. Watch that. Really, really good series. Main protagonists for most of it are a prince and his bodyguard. And it's great.
Kings, good and bad, Tolkien's pointing at something else. Aragorn doesn't just become king because he is the descendant of an ancient royal bloodline. It's not that a noble title makes Aragorn king, it's that he has a noble heart. For Tolkien...
But he also has the bloodline, otherwise he wouldn't be king, because there were other people too, right? Like, there were other people too. There were other noble characters too. There's a reason why Faramir wasn't going to be the king. That's not how that works.
And in most authors, it's about the person. But this still doesn't address something. If a lot of good people in fantasy worlds are still kings, barring exceptions like Westeros, then is this some implicit endorsement of monarchism? What about all the bad kings and nobles?
Well, the bad kings and nobles don't matter, because you can have bad people in a monarchist society who collectively decide to do bad things. Like, these are all possibilities.
It's easy to overlook just how many bad kings exist in fantasy worlds, not just Westeros. I also don't mean cartoonishly bad, like twirling your mustache while thinking about how many kittens you'll take from orphans. No, I mean people like Ozai. He's just an imperialist and he sucks. Or how about the game Tyranny? You literally serve a totalitarian ruler in Tyranny. Nobody is...
He said farmers at the bottom of the pool in medieval society? Did he? Did I miss that? That's dumb. Farmers could be very wealthy. You're not talking about a person living out in a shack in the middle of the woods growing potatoes. You're talking about people who own land, probably people laboring for them, and have a product to sell that is essential. Farmers can become kings. Farmers became, even up to the Soviet Union, often like landowning farmers became despised members of the upper crust.
He's innocent in that game. I don't recall most of the nobility in Traitor's Blade being good. In fact, the dukes are responsible for pretty much everything bad happening. They killed the king and set the entire plot in motion. They're described as capricious, greedy, and ambitious. If anything, they're the real traitors in the setting. I mean, are there any good nobles in Elden Ring? Like, let's just cover a few of the big names. Godric is an abomination by all accounts, Godfrey is a bloodthirsty conqueror, and Morgoth, his own son, isn't really that much better. I mean, I don't know. These guys don't really seem to be the paragons of morality here. I could sit here and continue pointing out every last bad monarchy or noble in fiction, but the point is this. I don't think most fantasy books and games and movies promote monarchism. A lot aren't explicit.
It depends what you mean by farmer and what you mean by medieval. The people who were farming were serfs and what most people think of as medieval. Yeah, but Link's not a serf. He's when he says farmer, like I take him to mean someone whose occupation is farming, not someone whose occupation is being an indentured laborer, right?
Really anti-monarchist either, but they really aren't that political. Just because a lot of fantasy worlds have monarchies, that doesn't mean a lot of them are monarchist.
Yeah, Link was a free person from a village who was like a family member, or like treated as like a family member and a neighbor, and then who could just go off on his own at will. Like, that's Link. Link is not a serf.
View the world with rose-tinted glasses, but a lot of fantasy novels don't. At the very least, they're only looking a part of human history and nature with nostalgia. Tolkien, for instance, romanticized the countryside, but he didn't think that every person in the countryside was good. Even pure Frodo wasn't immune to the temptation of the One Ring, and that's before bringing up all the other tragic figures in Middle-earth. And of course, those...
Like, you can tell he didn't read Lord of the Rings, because there's actually specific hobbits that are identified. There's the, oh, what's his name? What's the one that they encounter at, the one that's sold out to Saruman? Shit. There's the chief. I have to go pull it off my shelf, and I don't want to. There's the chief guy. There's, oh shit, hang on. Scouring of the Shire cast. There's the sheriffs. There's, I guess, were the sheriffs hobbits? Yeah, the sheriffs were hobbits. What is his name? God damn it. Sandyman. Ted Sandyman. That's who I'm thinking of. The miller's son. And Lotho Sackville Baggins. Yeah.
who have taken the rose-tinted glasses off, like Martin and Abercrombie, can have
Are you talking about Farmer Maggot, the third most badass character in Lord of the Rings? No, Maggot's great.
rather pessimistic views at times. It's not that they see certain government types or ideologies or worldviews as promoting evil, it's that they see the line between good and evil as more blurred than not. So where does that leave monarchism, fantasy, and the future? I started thinking that maybe fantasy is more monarchist than I thought, but as I dove deeper and reflected on old stuff I've seen and read, I realized that it's more nuanced than one may think. Sure, there are very few democracies in fantasy stories, except maybe urban fantasy, but that isn't really my cup of tea, so I don't know. But despite the fact that there are so many monarchies, I have never walked away from a fantasy story thinking about how great a monarchy would be. I never thought we needed one strong guy at the top to lead us and save us from the evils of the world. I imagine most feel
Well, then you haven't read Game of Thrones, because that's the #1 problem.
the same way. I don't see fantasy as monarchist any more than I see it as democratic. Every fantasy story has its own message, but don't kill the messenger.
Okay, I'm gonna kill him. Lazy. You both sides of the question. That's lazy. Read philosophy, read like political stuff. I was all excited about this. You get the unsubbing now. Do better. Lazy. I like his this animation though. That's cool. Do more research. Do something more critically engaging. It's fine. I'm not offended by it. It's just lazy. All right, I'm sending you to we're going to do more theory tomorrow. I'm sending you to like actual theory tomorrow. And then starting this week, we're going full steam ahead on the new heavy political angle on things. I'm sending you to Skeptic Spin. They're doing a panel on the Trump election. Have fun.